Thank you for joining the Sharpest College Football Podcast. Aloha! It is Island Time, the season premiere. I am BuckMetrics, joined as always by Robert Martin, and always on Island Time by our guy Duck. Gentlemen, good to see you. Island Time, it's a little different venue. I've seen your faces in different conference previews already, but this is a little different. Our ongoing tribute to the late great Robert Kekalua, who did Hawaii games in that gentle voice of his. A little more of a straight gambling tilt, not that the other ones don't, but this is a little more hardcore. Very popular in its first year last year. Looking forward to getting after it in this one. Just a little bit of housekeeping out of the way. If you want a PDF of this or any of the conference previews or the Notre Dame preview, they are available. Just leave your email address in YouTube or hit me up, as many people have actually done, on Twitter at BuckMetrics. And if you are returning, you are obviously a genius, and if you are new, then take a screen grab of this. Believe me, you will need it, and refer to it throughout this podcast and others. Gentlemen, this is the venue where I appreciate you guys indulging my selfishness in the reason for this pod. I soon will be in Vegas, although I will be back by the time this drops, so no, this is not the time to rob my house thinking I'm out of town, everybody. I wanted to check with Duck on the futures that you and I discussed, Robert, but outside of Duck's presence, just to get his take on these plays. So there's about 12 or so. Duck, I appreciate you helping me out here and indulging me, and Robert, you're just kind as always and along for the ride. You guys ready to do this?
Ready.
All right, so I asked AI to put me in Vegas, and as often happens, AI really did not understand the assignment. Apparently, AI thought that I was going to put on 20 pounds, have a really bad dispute with my barber, get some horrible plastic surgery on my lips, and then go to in front of the, don't miss this, go in front of the not Welco to Las Vegas sign, and shoot a hostage video where I threatened to strangle my dog. This is as bad as it gets, and if anybody can identify either of these hotels, be my guest. I don't know. AI is the Mario Cristobal of graphics generators. This is just horrible. My poor dog. I feel so sorry looking at his eyes, man.
I don't know, the dog, it's so crazy. It looks so weird. Like, why would you? It's so weird. Why are you murdering your dog? It's so weird. And the dog looks like weirdly happy too. It's just like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. All right, you guys ready to do some serious bets here? Here's a reminder. These are the ones that we actually did on podcast with Duck. Ball State under 3.5, Bowling Green under 6.5. I'm actually finding some outlines under 5.5. I still think that's a play there. TCU over 6.5. Just the big picture there is Sonny Dykes with his best defense ever. Arizona State to win the Big 12 and North Texas to win the American. These are all mine. I'm very bullish on all of them. Robert, any pushback on any of these?
I still like Arizona State. I just don't know if I like them at 6-1 to win the Big 12. But yeah, I bet North Texas today. I got 14. I think it's 13-1 in some books. But again, I'm still fine with it at 13-1. Oh no, it's only 13-1. TCU over 6.5. Yeah, I really like that one as well. I think they're a very underrated Big 12 team. And yeah, Ball State, Bowling Green, I'm down for those unders as well. I'm a little less bullish on Arizona State. That's basically it.
Okay. And any pushback from you, Duck, on any of these? I think you got North Texas at 22. Did you not?
Yeah, I did, before the market caught on to that. I think with Arizona State, the way that anybody could play any of the Big 12 teams is if you wanted to just wait until one of these teams takes a conference loss, because you'll see significant price improvement as that happens. And every one of these teams is going to lose 2 or 3 games this season. So you'll be able to corner the market. You probably get any one of these teams at 10-1 at some point this season. But I think Arizona State is very talented and will likely have their hand in who gets there if it's not them.
What about that outline on Bowling Green? Because I was saying that 6.5 was just a layup. I think that's still very playable on that line I'm finding in other places. You agree with that, Duck?
Yeah, the rebuild is going to be really tough for Bowling Green, specifically defensively. I don't think that the offense is going to be able to mask what they lost on defense. You got the scheme changes. They're going to try to play the style of offense with the Eddie George coach teams where you're going to line up with big tight ends. I don't know that they have the personnel to do it anyway. And they'll be quarterbacked by Drew Pine, so take that for what it's worth. But I don't think it's going to go very well for Bowling Green. I would be stunned if this team makes a bowl game. 6.5, obviously, is the play that I made earlier in the summer and would definitely support that. You got to lay some juice now, but I'd be stunned if this team makes a bowl game.
Yeah, so then the 5.5 is still a play then, right?
Still could be a play, yeah, 5.5.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I appreciate that. All right, these are roughly in the order of my projected ROI, and I've added a win percentage to each of these too, just to identify if you guys feel different from me, really what kind of games I think is where I could be off here. So the first one is Troy under 5.5 minus 115. Jared Parker, not surprisingly, really drove this program back. Let's not forget this guy was an offensive coordinator, and like all former offensive coordinators, he dropped his team's offensive power rating by over 10 points. Surprising nobody in the process, by the way. We had a good yuck about I don't know what happened with Goose Crowder. He had 2 starts, one against Memphis where he threw 7 passes, but the backup threw 19. And then he started against ULM, but then another guy had 11 passes. This is like basic. I don't think he knows what's going on here. They have the worst pass defense in the division. I put this nicely in just saying the market is overvaluing Parker as a head coach. I think the market is really slow just to see that this guy he shouldn't have been hired. We called that, Robert. I think we did that one with Josh. We just said bad hire right out of the gate. I think just the market is just missing just how overmatched this guy is, Parker. He's not a head coach, clearly, by my estimation. Duck, I'm curious, do you see this as a play?
I would probably think that this is a pretty good play. They did bring in some guys in the portal that you can get excited about offensively. Rod Thomas comes in from Georgia. Trey Cooley comes in from Georgia Tech. They bring in a couple guys from Coastal Carolina. So there are some pieces here. Goose was hurt last year, and so that's why they rotated quarterbacks. And I think he tried to play through it and just really wasn't able to. But they did lose 2 games they had no business losing against Louisiana Monroe and Arkansas State. They had both those games were winnables. They had chances to win on the field. They didn't get it done. Probably deserved a couple better results there, and you could argue that they deserved a better result against Nevada. But the schedule this go-around is pretty difficult in my opinion. I've got the non-conference. Yeah. Clemson, Memphis, Buffalo in the non-conference. I've got them as underdogs, significant underdogs in each of those 3 games. You've got to go to Texas State, go to Old Dominion, go to Southern Miss. You'll be looking up in the standings at all 3 of those teams. Louisiana Lafayette is not easy by any stretch. It's just one of those where you don't get a lot of bottom feeders on the schedule in league play, and probably just not a real big jump in the win column. Even if they have incremental or marginal improvement on both sides of the ball, which they might, I don't know that this team is going to be that improved overall. I could see them beating Arkansas State and Louisiana Monroe, but that's about it. Probably even maybe a little room to go on this one. 5.5 looks pretty good.
Yeah. Before you got to the last 2, and I'll take issue with that in a second, I don't think there was anything controversial about being big underdogs in those teams. And this isn't a coach that I can really yet see rallying the troops to beat a better team. I'd push back and say, is Troy really more talented than ULM? Because ULM has a coaching advantage. I don't know. So okay. So you agree with that, Robert? Any pushback on my win percentages here? You feel strongly about anything? Geez, I have them favored against Nichols, and that's it. And coin flip with Arkansas State, which is really damning them with faint praise.
I actually do really like the under 5.5. I think what this is that Troy was so good for a while, and then last year they were bad, and a lot of people are saying like, oh, it's regression. They're going to positively regress. They had a rough year for whatever reason. I don't think he's a good head coach, and I think that you saw that last year. Again, like, you're looking, okay, they beat Nichols. Cool. Okay, you're 50-50 against Arkansas State, 50-50 against Georgia State. Okay, give them both. That's 3. They need 6. right? What's the next one? At Buffalo, at the team that we like to win the MAC, right? Old Dominion at Southern Miss. Southern Miss could actually be good this year, right? You've got Clemson, you got Memphis, you got South Alabama, Texas State. There's a lot of stuff here where it's, yeah, I don't want to be like, I love the under 5.5, and I'm going to love fading them basically this entire way. They were not good at all last year, especially if you can get something where like they're giving points against South Alabama or something, but I'm not even sure if they would be. Like, after the Nichols game, are they? When's the next game? Their favorite? Is it at ULM? Is it?
What do you think about that, Duck? This is interesting. I'm really bullish on ULM. Actually, we'll talk about them later. Do you see them favored in any other game other than the opener?
Oh, yeah. I think they'll be favored against Arkansas State, and I think they could be favored against South Alabama. They catch South Alabama off of back-to-back at North Texas, and then they'll be playing their 6th game in 6 weeks, probably really looking for the bye week. South Alabama, I don't think will be very good this year, and their schedule to open up is pretty tough with Tulane, Auburn, Coastal Carolina, North Texas, and then at Troy to conclude. So yeah, I could truly see them beating South Alabama, and could also see them defeating Arkansas State and Georgia State. But I've got them as decided underdogs in 7: Clemson, Memphis, Buffalo, at Texas State. I've got them underdogs against Louisiana Lafayette, at Old Dominion, and at Southern Miss. So they're going to have to sweep the others just to go 5-7.
Yeah, they literally. I don't see any of those are particularly close too. I guess that's why I like this one so much too. I don't see any of those as coin flips, but I'm coming from a pretty bearish spot here. You did make a good point about them being they should have more wins last year. They do have a luck metric where they should actually improve off of that, but I have a feeling that Jared Parker will find a way to not find a way. Same conference, same division, different story though. The Charles Huff defending kind of Sun Belt champs, Southern Mississippi. Total is 5.5 minus 115. I will point out, when we did, I mentioned this to you, Robert. Duck, let me ask you this: the season win totals on the Sun Belt, will they be out like in February or so? When do those come out?
So it's a really dynamic question, and I won't give you the long-winded answer, but I will say I've been betting regular season win totals now for 12 years. We used to never see win totals on anybody until the South Point in Vegas would put them out over Memorial Day weekend. And so you could go to the South Point, get in line, bet 3 of the games, and then you'd have to get to the back of the line and wait your turn like everyone else. And you could do that as many times as you wanted. Then some of the offshore books from Bermuda and all these other places would start putting out regular season wins along with South Point sometime in June. With the widespread legalization of gambling in the United States, we've seen the race to be first. So we saw all the P4 schools from FanDuel, DraftKings, Caesars, all those places, like 3 weeks after the Super Bowl. And then we saw the G5, we saw them trickle in about May 1st is the very first time that I saw that. It's getting earlier, and we're seeing the race to be first to market, and FanDuel is probably winning that. But it was about May 1st or so before I saw any group of 5 win totals pop up.
So I bring that up because when we dropped the Sun Belt preview, this bet was plus money by a good margin. And I'm not saying we moved markets, but I'm saying somebody that might have actually moved markets maybe stumbled across our podcast. Thank you very much, whoever you are. Big better, kind sir. Because this moved a lot. This was, I'm telling you, this moved like maybe 40 or 50 cents. It moved quite a bit. It was big plus money. Still a play, though. Obviously, the case is Charles Huff brought in a lot of pieces from the defending champs in the Sun Belt, including, I think, pretty clearly the best quarterback in the Sun Belt in Braylon Braxton. New OC is Blake Anderson. I like that. Smart in that you're over-hiring and getting Utah State to pay the bill for a really experienced and proven OC. The OL's got some question marks, but I think that there's so many pieces around here that they can overcome that. To that point, there are 14 players from Marshall just on the defense side of the ball, just on the Phil Steele defensive depth chart. So there's probably more than that. I think the market is overlooking basically the whole influence of basically the roster move. You've got a winning culture. You've got a guy that I was crapping on for years, and all of a sudden he figured out once he got a good quarterback and he turned him into a really good quarterback. I think the market just doesn't get that. And they get a really good schedule draw from the East. Robert, this has come down. I still love this. I have this as like my second best. You still like this one too?
Yeah, this is going to be a really fun team to watch this year. I think they could do a lot of stuff. Week one, we've actually already bet them against Mississippi State. I don't think Mississippi State is particularly good, and this is an in-state rival, right? This is a rival that it's like, hey, you know what? Maybe one time we get to take them down, right? Jackson State, that's a D2 team. App State, not a particularly good D1 team. At Louisiana Tech, okay, that's a Conference USA team, but then you got Jacksonville State again, another. You've got some. They could potentially be heading out of September, like early October, with 4 wins here, right? And then you've got ULM, you've got Arkansas State, you've got Troy. There's a lot of paths to get to 6, maybe even 7 wins there, just alone on that. So, I think there is a path for this team could actually be quite good.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, I get almost emotional when it comes to these smaller conferences, and maybe I get a little too tied to it about this team's going to be good. Let me just ask you this, in your estimation, honestly, am I overrating this team? I think there's so much white space ahead of like the bottom of that West. You've got like just 3 wins in the bag there. And you've got a good coach and a good roster here, right?
Yeah, it's so hard for any model to appropriately power rate this team because they've been putrid now for several years in a row, and you have this influx of talent that's coming in. When the regular season wins were dropped, I thought that they were really penalized for the helmet sticker, and people just saw Southern Miss, and they're going to be crappy yet again. When you have 70 new players come in and a wide influx of talent that actually has played meaningful snaps, these aren't fringe players. These are key contributors that helped Marshall win the Sun Belt last season. And you get some P4 talent that comes in. They have really reconstructed the roster. I'll be honest with you, I bet this at this exact same price over 4.5. So I have over 4.5 in pocket. And I also bet them to earlier in the summer. There was an obscure 6+ wins, which is essentially what we got here now. And so I've got like a plus 177 or whatever it is for 6 or more wins. And so where I'm at in the position, I'm not going to try to throw any water on the flames here, but I'm not so sure this bunch is ready to claim a win against an SEC opponent. I'm waiting for that to get down below 10, and I'd probably end up on Mississippi State in week 1 just because they'll give a good fight at home. When it opened at 17, I think that's kind of where my buy point on Southern Miss would have been in week 1. If it gets below 10, I'll be on Mississippi State. But with that said, Jackson State is certainly winnable. A descending Appalachian State program at home is winnable. At Louisiana Tech, who I think is descending, Jacksonville State is going to be a completely different team than we saw last season.
We'll talk about them. Yes, don't spoil that one.
You've got wins potentially against Georgia Southern, Louisiana Monroe, Arkansas State, South Alabama, Troy. You got to line up and think you got a good chance against probably 9 opponents that you're facing this season minimum. So over 5.5 this is, in my opinion, no question, this is a bowl team this season.
Agree. Now, you made 2 really good points, and I think that you might have hit on kind of A plus B in terms of why just the market just doesn't get it here. They don't understand who came. Number one, let me take a step back. Number one, they look maybe at the volume of transfers and say, oh my God, this is just like Marshall, a bunch of new kids. This is going to be a disaster. And they don't know how to incorporate. The market doesn't know how to basically quantify transfers in. Big number scares you, right? Number 2, they're missing, along with that, just how good the proven nature of these guys that are coming in, and they all play together. I think that's a next level thing that the market just hasn't even seen. Oh, we need to figure out how to quantify this. They haven't even identified it as something to quantify. I think that's really where the market's just way off here.
And look at the coordinators. Yeah, look at the coordinators they brought in. They're going to have exquisite coaching, position by position, in a proven methodology that worked at Marshall. This is not just grasping at straws and hiring an FCS guy who was or a D2 guy from Valdosta State who doesn't know what he's doing. This is a proven formula, and I would assume there's some element of Charles Huff that coach is a little pissed off this season. He was not treated properly
you think so?
At Marshall. Yeah. And Blake Anderson, for that matter as well, was fired. The school said it was with cause. He's fighting that battle. These are coaches that really they've got a lot to prove to the naysayers, even though they've had success during their tenure at FBS. So, oh yeah, you've got a ton of motivation. You've got kids that want to win. They've played together. This is going to be a feisty bunch week in and week out this season.
Yeah. I will defend the Utah State administration and say that if you threaten to start Spencer Petras at quarterback, that is cause. That has to be cause, right?
Perhaps.
Yeah. Okay. The Huskies. This could be one where I'm just getting carried away and in love with the specific angle here. Second season under Jed Fish, they had, my gosh, horrible luck just in two specific games that just, they clearly should have beaten Washington State and Rutgers. That Rutgers was a magic act. I don't know how they did. I know how they lost that game. It was just horrible to watch. Damon Williams, I'll just say this. We'll be talking about him again later in the podcast. If you can understand this chart I put together here, basically I'm looking at, this is for the games that he played, the 5 teams that he played last year, this is the opponent's defensive apex plus, so their pass defense rating, where 100 is average and lower is better. This guy played a really rough slate, and after he got his feet wet against Iowa, he just took off, and he really took off. Think back to Fafita and Jed Fish. That started in the middle of year 2. This thing, and this kid is much like Noah Fafita. This guy's got way more talent than Noah Fafita, and he's not 5'8" like Noah Fafita. It's tough losing Steve Belichick. I think he did a great job last year. I really like bringing in Ryan Walters. I think that works out great. I love year 2 of Jed Fish. I think the market just does not get how good Damon Williams is and will be this year. Robert, you and I just spoke about this. Anything before I throw it to Duck on this, or are you just going to say, yeah, okay, sure?
No, I mean, 100% right. We're in agreement on this one. Washington was very undervalued last year. I distinctly remember losing some bets in agonizing fashion, specifically against, I think it was Rutgers, I want to say.
Yep. The special teams game.
Yeah, didn't we bet +3 and then they lost it by 4 or something? It was something really dumb where it was just like they should have won this game. It shouldn't even be close, but for some reason they lost it. I can't remember if we lost the spread bet on that one. But no, again, it's that exact kind of thing, right? Yeah, okay, you're going to have to go through Oregon, and you're going to have Michigan and Ohio State, but the total is 7.5, right? That's it. You can lose those 3 and be 9-3 and still be a very good team. And to be honest, I think there's an outside chance that they can actually just be better than one of those teams. Like, they could be better than Michigan. At that point, then you're looking at 10-2. And if Ohio State has a down year and Oregon, like, there's a chance that they could be, like, there's an outside chance they go to the championship game. I believe, like, Jed Fish is a good coach. And again, this was year 1 under Jed Fish. Mm-hmm. Washington lost so much from the year before to this year. And again, we talk a lot about Michigan, and we overhype Michigan so much. We're like, oh man, Sharon Moore, Michigan was so good last year. And there is a lot of credit to Sharon Moore. That team was better than I thought it was going to be. Again, it's worse than what people thought it was going to be, but it was better than what I thought it was going to be. Washington was also falling into that bucket of it's better than I thought it was going to be, but the record didn't show that, though. The record for Michigan was like, hey, this was a good team. The record for Washington was like, and I think that's the problem. Yeah, I like Washington, and I can't wait to see what they do. And I think they could upset Ohio State, is my thought on it. I think they, especially Ohio State coming west. And I also have the Ohio State under 10.5, so if Ohio State loses to Texas and Washington, then I cash my win total in, like, September. So I'd be happy with that.
And as we pointed out in the Big Ten preview, it's really, I think they're, like, I guess they're close enough to be within striking distance of their 3 toughest opponents, Ohio State, Michigan, and Oregon, and they get all 3 of them at home. I wouldn't say that I can't tell you that they don't stand a chance against any of those teams. They can if things go right, and they get them all at home. Just the schedule is just chef's kiss, as they say. Duck, I can definitely get emotionally involved sometimes. Am I just getting too tied up into Damon Williams here and overrating the Huskies?
I don't think so. I think I've already bet them in the look-ahead lines at Washington State in the Apple Cup game. They're head and shoulders above them and have to have the bad taste in their mouth for how last season's Apple Cup game ended. So I've already got them there. Should be 3-0. Ohio State's off a bye before they got to go to Seattle, but I think you get Ohio State in that environment and you get the stadium loud and it's hard to communicate. You've got a quarterback that's never started before who's trying to operate with new pieces everywhere on offense. They lose a ton of production from the defense. I don't think that's far from just an assured loss. I think they'll have every chance in the world to win that game against Ohio State.
Yeah.
The horrific spot is at Maryland because you got to play Maryland after Ohio State, and Maryland is off a bye, and you've got that cross-country travel, and I'm just telling you right now, that is an atrocious spot for Washington. It's one you want them to be focused, and you really want that win for the win total, and it's just such an ugly, gross spot. Maryland has a couple teams they get in that spot this year, but really bad. They get Rutgers at home on revenge for how that game ended last year with just terrible, timely late game referee gaffes that cost them a chance to kick a game-tying field goal. It was just really brutal. Illinois game's a bad spot. You got to go to Michigan the week before, and then Illinois comes in off a bye. So who really knows? But I think you get Oregon after Oregon plays USC, and that's a big deal for Oregon. This one may not be. And you get them at home. So I give them a chance there as well. UCLA is the game they should be favored in. Probably 9 or 10 winnables that you really feel comfortable with this Washington bunch. And I'm here to tell you right now, put this one on the file for when we get to the game week. There is no worse spot for a Power 4 team in the country than when Purdue goes to Seattle on November 15th. Purdue will have... And I'm here to tell you, 7 weeks in a row they play. November 1st at Michigan. November 8th hosting Ohio State. November 15th at Washington. You play Michigan, Ohio State, and then you got to go to Seattle. Absolutely disaster for Purdue. That is going to be a pounding. So circle Washington to bet against the number there. You can't set that line high enough. Yeah, I'd go over 7.5 here. I think this is an ascending team. I believe that Washington's really big leap will be next year, but I think that they'll go over this win total. I don't know that they're going to challenge for the conference, but I think it's 8-4 or better.
All right. You mentioned this. I think I'm a lot more bearish on Illinois than most people. I guess if you were to set a line, Washington, I forget what this was. I don't have my spreadsheet here. That feels like about minus 12 or so for Washington. What would you make the line on Washington and Illinois? You might even have Illinois favored, huh?
Let me get back to it here quick.
I'll get you an answer here in just a second.
Yeah, no worries.
If I get my computer to work. I would set that line at Washington minus 2.5.
Okay. So you would have Washington favored. Interesting.
2.5.
On the road. Yeah. Okay. So clearly...
No, Washington's not on the road.
Yeah, you know what? I do 120 of these. I get the venues mixed up sometimes. So they get Illinois at home too?
Yeah, the only problem is Illinois is off a bye and Washington's off a trip to Michigan.
Okay, so that game's at Michigan. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we all like the Huskies there. I'll be interested to see if Duck agrees with us. I think, Robert, you agreed with me on this one on Syracuse. Understaking a lot of money here. Second luckiest team in FBS. They're breaking in a new quarterback. They lose quite a bit of their Ryan. Trevor Payne went to Penn State. They actually had the second worst run offense in the ACC last year. They have 3 transfers in starting on the offensive line, which is a problem. I really like Fran Brown as a dude. I hope he succeeds as a coach. I am not encouraged that his defense actually took a step back in year 1, given that he's a former DB coach, if I remember correctly, at Georgia. This was a lucky team that literally, you know what? They were actually the Middle Tennessee of the ACC. And that basically all they could do is throw the ball. They couldn't play defense. They couldn't run the ball. And unlike Middle Tennessee, they have a new quarterback this time. I think people are looking at... Fran Brown got a lot of pub coming into last year too. And then the one loss he executed on, And I think that there's just a lot of fairy dust on that people are missing a lot of, I don't know, the glacier underneath the iceberg, if you will. This wasn't a great team last year. Awesome they pulled out the W's, but they just weren't that good. They've got a difficult schedule too. I like Fran Brown, like I said. I'm not convinced I'm as a head coach. I've got him favored in 2 games. Connecticut and Colgate. And I've got him in dogs in the rest of them. And I don't know. I might be a little conservative on that Duke game. Duke's kind of a your mileage may vary team, so maybe they're favored in 3. But after that, I don't know where you get the 4th win, let alone 5 and 6. I know, Robert, when we talked about this, you agreed with me. So I'll just, first of all, send it to Duck. We haven't talked about this at all so far. I'm curious where you stand on the orange.
The winnables are at home, but against marginal competition. Boston College, you get at home. North Carolina, Pitt, Duke. The road games are almost unattainable. You got to go to SMU, Clemson. You get Tennessee in a neutral. Georgia Tech, Miami, Notre Dame. It's a brutal schedule. There's no two ways around it. And you got North Carolina coming in on short rest after a trip to Georgia Tech. It's just you're looking up at all these teams in the standings, and it's hard to assume
continuity.
I still don't know on Steve Angeli. I know he was thrown in a tough spot at Notre Dame, and he came in there and had his 15 minutes of fame and played well. But can he do it over the course of the entire season, 12 games in? Yet to be determined. I'll tell you right now, too, I'm not going to pencil them in as massive favorites against Connecticut. They might be favored by a touchdown or less, but it's not going to be a 20-point situation.
I tried to not get carried away. Connecticut's tricky. The Independents, unless you're Notre Dame, can be tricky. Now, thankfully, we only have one more, but Connecticut's a tough team. They do play kind of a critical mass of, I think it's like Sun Belt, so you do get a little bit of a kind of connective tissue there. But they were actually good. They won like 9 games, right?
Yeah, they lost to Maryland in the opener 50-7, and then reeled off a bunch of wins and looked like an exceptional team all season, and then defeated North Carolina in the bowl game.
Yeah. So point taken. I try not to get carried away on these, and I guess the thing is, let me frame it this way: how many points would you need to back Connecticut against Syracuse at Syracuse?
8.5.
Wow. Okay, I was going to say 10.5. We're not too far off. Okay, interesting. One other question about. Oh, go ahead, please.
I just think that the schedule of opponents is one where you're just not really conducive to racking up the wins. Now, you could make the case that Tennessee they've had just a mess of an off season, and Joey Aguilar, when facing pressure, is a terrible Sun Belt quarterback, let alone an SEC quarterback. So if Syracuse can get some pressure there on Tennessee, do they have a chance? There's a possibility they could keep that game competitive, and they've taken money in the market. Connecticut, Colgate, could they beat Duke at home? Possibly. Are you splitting with Pitt and North Carolina? Maybe. Are you trying to play Boston College to go to a bowl game? Possibly. But when you just basically break down the schedule as Clemson, SMU, Georgia Tech, Miami, and Notre Dame, you're probably not winning any of those games. So you're starting off with those 5 losses. You're 2 touchdown underdogs at Tennessee, which would make it a 6th loss. Are you sweeping the rest? And if you're sweeping the rest, then that means you're beating UNC, Pitt, Duke, Boston College, and I just don't see that. You'll be 4.5-point underdogs in every one of those games. This play makes a lot of sense for me to go under 5.5. And I think it's one of those things too where the books were able to set this line this way, and people, the booger eaters, are just going to look at this and say, "What the heck is this? Syracuse won 10 games this year. They're going to go bowling." It just seems so obvious to go over. But when you dive into the second level, I think it's an under season for Syracuse.
That's what I miss too when I think like my numbers are wrong. In doing a lot of these previews, I'm shocked sometimes about the actual one loss. Like, I was surprised that Missouri had a good one loss at Illinois because I'm so focused on my metrics, and that's why I think some of these times I get emotional about Joel Klatt and Illinois in his top 10 in May. But I don't know. You can say that. Robert, I'm going to say this very specifically. This is as tough a schedule that an ACC team can get because you're drawing like kind of all the aces and kings within conference, and then it's your year to get Notre Dame too.
Tennessee.
Just as an ACC team, it doesn't get tougher than this.
No, this is one of the hardest schedules probably for an AC team. You have an SEC team. You have Clemson. You have SMU. You have Duke, who's pretty good too. You have Pitt, which is never an easy. You never want to see Pittsburgh on your schedule. Georgia Tech, again, another good team. North Carolina, a very overhyped team, but will be a good team. Miami, Florida, they're gonna. There are any players remaining on that team from last year. I don't know if they're going to make it off. I don't know if Syracuse is going to get off the field in that game. They're going to get absolutely murdered. And then you have Notre Dame, a team that could be competing for a national championship by that point. And then you have Boston College, another good team. So, okay, cool. You get UConn and Colgate. All right. What are the other wins? Like, I guess you just pencil in Pittsburgh and you call it a day because there's nothing else there that's like even okay. I guess maybe you can call maybe Boston College, but that's 4. We need 6 here. And again, those are not even. Pittsburgh and Boston College, you probably go 1-1 in that. You probably don't 2-0 that. So,
if you're fortunate, would you have Syracuse favored in either of those games?
No,
probably not. No, I think the Duke game is a toss-up. Like at best, it's a toss-up. Could be worse. So, I mean, you almost wonder how much of because Syracuse, and I still don't know exactly how they did this. They got Kyle McCord somehow. Not sure how they got Kyle McCord, but they did, and they won a 10-win season. I know. Kyle McCord is.
I can tell you, I don't know if you noticed, he wasn't too happy. He wasn't too popular in Columbus after that Michigan game. You might have missed that.
No, I know he wasn't popular in Columbus. But was there no other Big Ten team? He would have been better than Curtis Bork at Indiana. Right?
I was about to say that was the logical place for him to land. Yeah.
There's so many other places where, like, so many other teams probably would have killed for Kyle. Now, maybe they thought Kyle McCord was secretly bad, but I think if you told them, hey, Kyle McCord is going to have a 10-win season at Syracuse. They've been tripping over themselves to get Kyle McCord there last year. So this is where I think they just lucked out getting Kyle McCord. We like the coach, but at the same time, this is a really rough year. You're going with a quarterback and again, look, Notre Dame, and they announced it today. They announced CJ Carr is starting. First ever game starting. I believe Steve Angeli has played some games for Notre Dame at quarterback. Not I think he started
he did one start. He had one start.
Yeah. So, if you're Marcus Freeman, and you're like, because again, it was clear like Riley Leonard was starting quarterback last year. If Steve Angeli is even leaving, it means Marcus Freeman was not like, oh no, don't go, please. Like he clearly was okay with him leaving. Because if not, it would have been like, no, we have to keep him. But that didn't happen. So. Again, you're getting a quarterback that Notre Dame was completely fine with getting rid of in favor of a freshman, like a complete unknown, just a complete mystery box. They're like, we'll take mystery box, not Mr. Angeli there. So that's concerning. And you staple that with, and again, Syracuse is far from a dominant, recruiting team. This is far from a blue blood here. No, I think, could this be a good team? Yes, I like betting this team when they're 20-some-odd point underdogs against someone, sure. But I don't think that, I'm very tempted to take Tennessee on the spread. Tennessee is 14-point favorites week 1. I think that seems low, to be honest with you. But, again, I think this season could be pretty rough for Syracuse.
Yeah, you look at the schedule in the ACC, and it is the toughest schedule that any team in ACC play will face. Of the bottom 7 teams in ACC play, you are one of them. You play one of them, and you avoid 5 of them.
I was going to say...
No Cal, no Stanford, no Wake.
So there's a card game called golf, and there's variations of it, but you can look at your cards, but they're face down. And you can either draw from the deck face down or just knock. If you are basically looking at the schedule like a game of golf, you would discard almost any of your current conference games basically to draw from the deck against any of these guys. I would probably cycle through all these guys until the deck was dry. To your point, it's as rough as it gets, right? If you're Fran Brown, you're knocking until basically the deck is dry here, right?
Do you almost say Fran McCaffrey there?
Yeah, I did. My gosh. Sorry. They're often confused. Pardon me.
Yeah, and this is for anybody listening at home, too. If you're trying to assess regular season wins, my recommendation, and something that I've found success with doing, is if you can start your prep early in the transfer portal cycle, try to get your fingerprint on what these teams are going to look like. And then the absolute number one exercise is going through and assessing the schedule. You've got to look at the number that's posted, and you have to look at the opponents that are on the schedule. Strength of opponent, likelihood of win percentage, do the pass fail exercise, because with these 16, 17, 18 team super conferences, a team can be good and the win total is low. Why would that be? They play 6 of the top 7 in league play. They're not going to beat those teams more often than not. So that's just a good practice to get into.
Yeah, agree. All right, next team, Marshall, under 5.5, getting crushed at -190. Found a book that actually, I think it was BetMGM or maybe 365, that actually had them under 4.5 at plus money, which is interesting. We'll get to that in a second. So this is the first season under Tony Gibson. He was North Carolina State DC. Charles Huff, as we talked about earlier, has moved to Southern Miss with a lot of the roster from this team that won the Sun Belt nominally. They lost so many players, they actually opted out of the 2024 Independence Bowl. You look at all the red here, and it's basically a red wedding in terms of all the returning metrics here. It's gross. The new quarterback, Carlos Del Rio Wilson, I'm sure Robert has a lot of fond memories of him at Florida. The new OC, Rod Smith from Jacksonville State. I'll just say this. I find it really interesting that Rich Rod did not bring him to West Virginia with him. So there's a bunch of things that factor here that I think this one's pretty easy to sniff out what the market is missing here. Like we talked about with Southern Miss, I think that they're just not understanding the complete roster overhaul, and just there's no pieces to build on here. We've got that lovely combo that I love with the improving head coach and a provably bad quarterback here. I also like going against the Rod Smith quarterback in year one. Smith has been a fine OC, but it takes a while to get a guy that fits your system when it comes to the Rich Rod and Rod Smith show. And you don't get Rich Rod here, just the Rod Smith part of it. And I'm going with the fairy dust fallacy too. I think that they don't understand there's no fairy dust from last year's team here. I think there's just a hangover, like we said about Troy a couple years ago. Oh, Troy's a strong brand. Oh, here's the defending champs, and there's no resemblance to the champs here at Marshall. Robert, you and I beat this team up a lot in the Sun Belt preview already, so I'll throw it to Duck on this. You're going to need, I think, a specific guy, a specific quarterback under Rod Smith, and I just don't know if Carlos Del Rio Wilson is, number one, the guy, number two, functional. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, beyond the quarterback, the roster is just so substantially depleted, and the schedule poses its own unique set of challenges. For me, I've already made this play at under 5.5. It was one of the first win totals I bet. And you open the season at Georgia, probably beat Missouri State and Eastern Kentucky. Then you got to go to Middle Tennessee, who is probably maybe a little bit more, I don't know, up and down than high variance than you might think, but not a gimme by any stretch. And then you go to Louisiana Lafayette on second of back-to-backs, and they have revenge from how that Sun Belt title game went, so you're not winning that one. The crossovers are tough in Sun Belt West play because you've got to go to Louisiana, and then you have Texas State coming in.
Yes.
And all your winnables are on the road, so you're probably not going to beat Georgia Southern, James Madison, Texas State, or Old Dominion at home. You'll be significant underdogs in every one of those games, in my opinion. And so you got to sweep Coastal Carolina, Georgia State, App State on the road. It's just not a schedule that's conducive to racking up the wins, in my opinion. I think we'll see this group as underdogs in as many as 9 games this year, by my count. And it's just a full rebuild. You got too much roster turnover. What they backfilled with is not going to be what they need to necessitate getting on a roll. The Sun Belt schedule sees several teams come in off a bye. It's a disaster. Good luck going to App State trying to get your 4th win and then doubling back for Georgia Southern to complete the season. I just don't see a lot this year. It's going to be too far behind and too much turnover. Maybe next year or year 3 they'll kind of see a rebound.
Let me ask you this before I throw it to Robert here. Clearly, I think Missouri State's got more of a chance here. I have them as a slight favorite, and you would know this as being an FCS guy. Missouri State has an identity. We know that they throw the ball. We don't know anything if there's anything that's done well here. Would you really favor Marshall over Missouri State?
I probably would favor Marshall over Missouri State on the betting line by about 6.5 or so.
Oof, that much?
You got to think too. Missouri State the week before will be at the Coliseum, and so you've got this cross-country travel to the Coliseum, and then you got to get back on the plane and go to West Virginia, and they might be peeking ahead at their home opener. They get to host SMU, and that'll be a massive game for their program. So I could just see. It's not a good spot for Missouri State having to go across the country, then come back, spend 48 hours at home, and then get back on the plane. Not great, but I'd certainly give Missouri State a chance.
Okay. Fair. Robert, would you said, I think Duck said he might have him favored as many as 3. I only have him favored as 1. Do you see a second one or a third?
There's some coin flips there, right? Missouri State, Middle Tennessee State. Technically, you have them have a better chance of beating Georgia Southern than App State. I don't necessarily believe that, but something there. Like you could maybe make an argument that they would be competitive in, call it 5 games. The total's 5.5, and again, competitive being the operative word there. Not win 5, competitive in 5, and then it's okay. Say you go 3 of those, and then one of those will be FCS team. Fine, sure, but then you got 4 coin flips. You're not winning 4-0. And you're already lucky last year, so that regresses. Yeah, you're in trouble here, right? I actually like the under 4.5. Again, I think the books have a weird job to do in some of these cases because you're like, hey, this was the team that won the conference championship last year, and they're going to suck this year, so what do we do here? If you put the total at 3.5, let's say you're FanDuel and you say 3.5, everyone is going to bet over 3.5. And if somehow they magically get 4 wins, which is, again, it's an outcome, not the most likely outcome, it's an outcome, then you're screwed. Like, you're like, that's a Sunbelt chance. Of course they're going to have more than 3 wins. Now, they're not going to, but you can't lay a bad number like that. So you have to give a number like 5.5, 4.5, etc. You have to do that. It's a thing you have to do, right? So I think that they're stuck. They don't love this position either, but I think that's why they give you an amazing line like this.
I think what happens is Duck and his guys, he drops his knowledge on the Action Network, and then the word gets out, and then that number goes to 4.5 by the time I go to Vegas. Is that the chronology that kind of works there, Duck?
I'm guessing that happened because I did blast this in the summer and told everybody who would listen.
Yep.
So, yeah. But I think the thing, too, is we are in significant uncharted territory in the college leagues today where the transfer portal is now creating this sort of unintended consequence where the G5 continues to get rated by the P4 and they are rating themselves trying to backfill, and now you're bringing in FCS talent, and it's really hard when you're doing a year-over-year power rating. You'd never adjust a team more than a touchdown, and now you're seeing even people who have the greatest of the great models, the the SP Plus, the SAG ratings, Brad Powers. You've got guys that are really astute modelers that have had to adjust their power ratings as many as 17 points. You would never do that 2-3 years ago, and from the beginning of days, you'd never do that, and now you're having to have a lot more tolerance for higher adjustments. And I think this year specifically, we saw it with Southern Miss in the inverse fashion, and we see it here where you're rewarding a team a little too much for the helmet sticker instead of what the personnel is, and you can see a team go from worst to first or first to worst. As we'll probably see with Marshall, they're just going to be a real bad Sunbelt team, and you got to really dive into the personnel. I think it's no longer a situation where a team has an allotment of 95 scholarships, and you might lose 7 or 8 guys annually, but the core DNA of who your team is remains from year to year, and your team can take on the identity of the coach, and the team can be really known for something that they do really well, and they recruit to that. That's all gone out the window. These teams are so cyclical now year to year. It's
Yeah.
almost impossible to adhere to a power rating where you say a team was power rated here, and I'm not deviating from that because it's the team. Wow, those teams change so fast year to year.
Yeah, two points on that. That's why I like where we are in that I pick out what I want to play, and if I can't, I just say, fine, I don't know. I learned that from the horse races. You know what? If you play all 9 races at the day, you're going to lose money most likely. If you pick the 3 that you really like, it's a lot easier to make money that way. As you were describing it, it's probably not the right term, but I want to use it. It just almost feels like a ghost kitchen where you're getting food, but you don't really have a restaurant. What's Marshall going to be good at this year?
Punting.
Yeah, okay, maybe. Punting with frequency. That's about it. Yeah, it's tough.
They're going to get a lot of practice at punting.
Get a
Yeah.
lot of kickoff return practice.
Yes. Yeah, they'll set a record for number of kickoff returns. One of those really bad stats that they'll try to frame positively. All right. Not unlike, although a little less extreme. UNLV. Dan Mullen, really good job at Mississippi State. Your mileage varied at Florida, depending on which side of, I guess, the cocktail party you're on. Loved him at ESPN. Sad to see him go, but if he wants to do this, then great. Congratulations on starting Anthony Colandrea. I guess that'll work out. Maybe not. I don't know. He's not quite Tim Tebow that he had when he was the OC there. But this is another team. This is just, there's no connective tissue to the team that played the title game last year. Here we go. Bunch of red on the OL. You're returning all of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 starts, not starters, starts on the defense. Now, he's brought in some guys from P5 programs. It's kind of like Last Chance U meets, I don't know, the roulette table here in Vegas. There's some horrible analogy. It just, look, I like Dan Mullen, but this is stupid. 8.5, I just don't see it. This is the real fairy dust fallacy where the market is pricing in, as Duck has said a couple times here, this is all about the helmet sticker. There's no basis for this. And is the Mountain West the toughest conference? No. Is it the toughest G5 conference? No. But this is just a team. This is just a Mountain West team, I think. Is that a fair statement, Duck?
To put this in Vegas terms, UNLV is concomitant to playing 000 roulette. Could be fun, but there's a lot of better value. This is 000 roulette. Don't do it. Don't go over. I think UNLV actually did a relatively decent job in the portal with trying to piecemeal their roster together. And I think that Dan Mullen has a couple of things going where he can make it work offensively. He's got a couple of early season games where they can really figure it out against Idaho State and Sam Houston State before UCLA comes to town. I've got that one closer to a pick'em, to be honest with you. I think UCLA is probably about 2-point favorite for UCLA. So there's a chance. And you look at the games, you look at the way that they're going to start, Idaho State, Sam Houston, even if it's a loss against UCLA, Miami of Ohio, they'll likely win. They get a schedule boost because this Idaho State game was moved, so now they'll have a bye before going to Miami of Ohio and Wyoming. So New Mexico's on the schedule, Utah State, Nevada. The floor is probably 7-5. Like bare bottom is 7-5. There's just so many teams on this schedule that they're better than. And then you host Hawaii. Hawaii's terrible on the road. And I don't bank on Hawaii to win a road game ever. And their road slate is quite difficult this year. Yeah, I could see this team being very competitive. I'm down on Colorado State, so I could see them beating Colorado State. I'm not saying I'm running to the window to go over. Like I said, it's 000 roulette. But the schedule is one where really your assured losses at Boise. And going to Wyoming in elevation could be tricky. It'd be better for Wyoming if they had that game late in the season, so maybe a little snow on the ground and cold, and those Vegas guys don't want to be there. But I don't know. The thing that has to come together for UNLV is they have to grasp the offense, which will be significantly different than what they ran last season. Quarterback play, they're going to have to be willing to run the quarterback, and they're going to. So Colandrea and Orji figure out who's going to be the number one and give him full control of the offense. And then the red zone last year was stunning. You guys won't believe me when I tell you this. They had 71 red zone possessions last year. 35 of them did not end in touchdowns.
Really?
They had 14 scoreless possessions and 21 red zone field goals last year. The red zone woes were a substantial problem. It was a lingering issue that did not go away and directly cost them in the win column last year. And so if Mullen can figure out the red zone issues, the offense actually could pop a lot more than what you might think.
Do they have enough pieces on offense to even draw that from last year's team? I don't. Go ahead.
The offensive line is going to be a work in progress for the first couple of weeks. So, I don't know. They're going to run the football. They're going to run Jaden Thomas, and they're going to run their quarterbacks. And we'll see what they have at receiver. They got guys that came in from Arizona State, TCU, Pitt, Western Kentucky, Utah. They've got some guys that at least, I mean, they played there. These are guys that didn't just ride the bench and never collected any stats. These are guys that have snaps under their belt. And you have talent to work with, but you've got guys that have come from all these different places, and now you have a new coaching staff. You're running a new offense. I don't know if it'll all come together the way that we might think, but just up and down the schedule, in the conference schedule anyway, your two games that are really concerning are hosting Air Force and then going to Boise back-to-back. I think that's where the win total could be won or lost, is if you lose both those, you're going under. If you split, you're probably going over, because the second half of the schedule is just full of Mountain West power-rated bottom feeders.
Yeah, I guess I see them as just a whatever MAC or Mountain West team, not a MAC team. They haven't taken that big of a step back. Because I'm not really fired up about Colorado State. They were really an average Mountain West team last year, and I think they're the same, and I think that's where UNLV lands. Let me just ask you one more question then. Why would this be different than the Marshall situation if it's almost the same roster turnover, isn't it? So what's different here? Is it the quality of guys coming in?
Much more talented players, yeah. I would say. I think that the roster turnover, position by position, the defense takes a step back. And you'll see that in their play. You'll see it on Saturday when they play Idaho State. You had the linebackers, you had Woodard, you had Jalen Catalon, Elad, Jonathan Baldwin, Antonio Doyle. You had so many guys last year for UNLV that you could count on to be in position. And so defensively, they'll take a step back. Can the guy scheming it up, Paul Gunther, who has experience coaching plenty of places, including in the NFL, maybe he can get it together when it really matters. I think they'll breeze through their first two opponents. So you do have some time, too, to try to build this up. I'm not trying to suggest that they're going to just breeze through the entire slate, but a lot of bad teams on that schedule that I wouldn't want to necessarily bank on having to go out and beat.
That's a fair statement. Yeah.
Wyoming, Nevada, Utah State, New Mexico, those are bottom four teams. New Mexico, bottom four in the Mountain West. You'll be significant favorites over every one of those teams, plus Sam Houston, Idaho State. I think the floor is 7-5.
Okay.
But that's not 8.5. It's not 8.5.
Yeah. Robert, let me ask you this then, because probably the biggest area of disagreement between Duck and I is he sees basically that UCLA game as almost a coin flip. I've got UCLA pretty fair favorite there. And again, I'm as skeptical about the no spring quarterback as you can get. I just think that it's still a loosely used term when it comes to UCLA, Big Ten talent. I almost cringe saying that about UCLA. They did win 5 games as a Big Ten team. Where would you peg that UCLA UNLV if you had to say, okay, either a spread or a win probability, either side, just for reference? You pick.
UCLA is probably a better team than them. Could UNLV win that game? Sure. Will they? I don't know. This is the thing, right? And I echo what you said about Dan Mullen, right? Loved him at ESPN. It was actually great. Loved him there. I'm going to be actually sad to see him go. I thought he was far better at ESPN than at Florida. That's more of a compliment than a diss. But this is the thing, right? He was a pretty good coach at Florida. Could he meet Florida's expectations? Probably not. But at the same point in time, this is UNLV. Significant step down in competition. But at the same time, you have Anthony Colandrea, you have a pretty weak offensive line. again, this is really just, it's roulette. I think they probably find a way to go 8-4. I don't think they go 9-3. I think they probably find some way to back into an 8-4 season, maybe a 7-3, but somewhere around that. Like or it's a 7-5. I don't see a 9-3, which is what you need for this. But maybe Dan Mullen actually figures out Anthony Colandrea, and then Virginia just immediately fires their coach because they're like, "Why couldn't you do this?" I don't know.
When you do those scenarios, I love that.
Yeah, it's just we're just Virginia coach catching strays here, but no, this is the thing. I think there's a scenario where this works out well. I just don't know if it's going to work out this year one. I think you need to give Dan Mullen more time to do this. He came in. It was after bowl season that he was hired. I don't think it was during bowl season that he was hired. It was probably fully after the playoff, right?
Purdue had to wait until they were out of the playoffs to hire Barry. I'm joking.
No, but it was because Barry Odom coached the bowl. Or no, he didn't coach the bowl, did he?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
No,
because I know Purdue. He didn't, yeah. Because Purdue held on to their guy until the last game, and then they fired them after the blowout loss to Indiana. And then Purdue hired Barry Odom. I don't think he coached the bowl game. But then I think
Dan Mullen was hired. I think Dan Mullen attended the bowl game and was hired. Dan Mullen was hired by the time they played the bowl.
Is he doing analysis for ESPN too at the same time? Is this a conflict of interest?
I think Rick Neuheisel did that. He did that. Like, he covered UCLA when he was hired. Before he was he was hired. It was weird. Sorry, go ahead.
Could you imagine? You'd be like taking notes. You'd be like, "Oh man, like number 12, fair transfer out." Is that what? Like,
yeah.
Just taking notes. Be like taking names. Be like, "Oh, that wasn't good. That was a good play. We're gonna have to get rid of that guy." This is, I don't know. I'm intrigued to see how this goes. I'm really excited to see what they can do. Obviously, we've got to wait a few weeks because Idaho State and Sam Houston are probably not the biggest tests. But I want to see if Dan Mullen can fix Anthony Colandrea. But I just don't want to bet on that. So I just want to watch.
Yeah, the other thing too, just talking about this is why I wanted to do this. If I look at the conference schedule here, I look at this group of teams, and if I look at the coaches, there's only one that I could say is as good of a coach as Mullen, and it's this guy, Troy Calhoun. I think that he's clearly a better coach than everybody else too, and maybe that's just the cautionary tale where I should maybe ratchet this action back a little bit. You seem to be agreeing pretty hard with me there, Duck.
Yeah, and I think Air Force just gets them in a good spot, too. So UNLV has to go to Wyoming's off a bye, and then the following week after Air Force, they got to go to Boise. So you've got some road trips sandwiched in, and then now you got to slip in. And by my research, I couldn't ascertain that Paul Gunther and his group have ever had to prep for the triple option. So it's just a bad spot for UNLV. It's probably going to be priced. I'd love to catch Air Force over a touchdown, but I don't think we'll see that. I think we'll see it closer to what you've got.
Yeah, this is one of those games where I couldn't even come up with the price. Literally, it's like whatever I wanted on one side, I wanted the same amount of points on the other. The double plus money, which just becomes a coin flip. Yeah, interesting. That actually was the one when I had to pick a Mountain West upset. That was my upset, was Air Force over UNLV. Okay, I will probably ratchet that back a little bit. Maybe I will up this one. Jacksonville State, under 6.5. That's actually been pushed down to 5.5 in some books as well. This is an easy narrative for me. Charles Kelly, first-time head coach. The new OC is Clint Trickett, who Robert and I had a couple of good yucks about. Was the offensive coordinator at Marshall. Guess what? When you make a program better by leaving, and they suddenly find a quarterback because you're not OC, I'm fading you. Even better, we have Gavin Winsap with his career apex of 37 here. My goodness, this is just, I love this already. I'm going to start drooling here in a second. Offensive line and defense are among the least experienced in the conference. There's so many angles here that I love. This is another fairy dust fallacy. Hey, defending champions, right? Sticker play. You have an unproven head coach. You have a proven, extremely awful quarterback. He is the standard. Don't be Gavin Wimsatt, as we've come to use in this conference preview season. And you cannot state enough the downgrade in head coach. Jacksonville State was so far over their weight class in the quality of head coach that they had here. And now they're going basically to, I think, unknown could be kind. We don't know what he is. It's not like this is the hotshot guy who's 35 years old and, to use Duck's reference, had Valdosta State scoring 50 points a game or whatever. This guy had a nice defense at Auburn, but he's been around a long time, and it's not like I watched any games and saw a lot of commentators saying, when is Charles Kelly going to get a head coaching job? He deserves it. I'd never even heard of this guy considered at all. This is such an easy play for me. Let me see here. I've got him favored against Murray State, of course. Man, this is how bad it is. I've got him as a coin flip with Sam Houston, and I've got him almost a coin flip with Kennesaw. I might be really tough here, but this is why Duck is on the show. He knows how to dig into he knows how to forage in the bushes like me and figure out is there meat on the bones here? Are there mushrooms in the forest here? Let me just ask you with this, Duck. Where would you see Sam Houston and Jacksonville State right now? In terms of spread or who would even be a favorite in that game?
I think at Sam Houston, I think the Bearcats would be favored by 3.
Oh, that
I truly have them power rated almost dead even. I will say this.
Yeah.
I like the play. I've made the play. I went under 6.5. Based on what we have on the screen here, I value a half a win at about 60 cents. So if both those numbers are available, absolutely go under 6.5. Pay the extra juice because about 110 cents is a full win in my opinion. So 6.5 is the better bet. 7 and 5 is completely out of reach. Just assessing the schedule, you've got UCF, Liberty, and Georgia Southern. You're not winning any of those games, and you're double-digit underdogs in every one of them. At Southern Miss is also a brutal spot. You're 1-4 to start. Now, at Middle Tennessee and at UTEP later on down the slate, you're dropping at least one of those, and then you can.
Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I've got him slight dogs in both of those.
No, you're dropping at least one of those, if not both. 2 ascending Conference USA programs that'll be both much improved. You're at FIU and you host Western Kentucky to conclude your season. You're at a minimum dropping one of those. You're probably dropping both.
Yeah.
The winnables are just not there. There's not enough winnables. You could beat Kennesaw, you could beat Sam Houston, you could beat Delaware, and you will beat Murray State. But my ceiling on this team is 5 and 7. I think 4 and 8 is more likely. But again, just the math, the way that I've been doing this over several years, you'd want to take under 6.5 at minus 185 and spend the money because they're not winning 7. I will say this, and this is important. If you want to make money on this team this year, they're going to be 0-3. They're going to be hosting Murray State. Murray State is an absolute bottom feeder in the FCS Missouri Valley Football Conference. They don't belong. In the spring, the Racers, for spring practice, had 34 players on their roster. They could not field a 2 deep. They signed 48 high school freshmen at Murray State. So put it in your calendar. The first number on Jacksonville State, bet Jacksonville State to cover the spread in that game. It'll be 10, 12, 15, 25. It doesn't matter. They will blast Murray State. So you'll want to play them in that game. But the rest of the way, they're going to be significant underdogs, and they're not going bowling. There's too much production lost. You saw chinks in the armor last year defensively in their first 3 games of the season, the way that they played against Eastern Michigan, the way that they played against Coastal Carolina and Louisville, and it was only after Huff really got that offense humming that they were able to remain competitive and then go on the run that they did to win the league. But this is just a night and day. Any sort of film you could put on from Jacksonville State last year, throw it in the garbage can because it's not going to apply to this year's squad. But please circle it, and you will want to bet them hosting Murray State, no matter what the line. First number.
And because you personally are going to bet that up by 3 or 4 points by the time you get done.
Probably 13, yeah.
There you go. Okay.
It'll move significantly.
I love that intel. Robert, let me just give you the turn the punch bowl question here. Who would you favor between Jacksonville State hosting Kennesaw State? Aside from the fact that we all win as viewers of that game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some of these games. And the thing is, at this point, it's functionally impossible to say, oh yeah, that team is going to win that game, because we don't know yet. Now, the nice thing about us and our models is that we're going to be watching these games when those games happen. So, like, at Sam Houston, hosting Kennesaw State, we are going to have opinions of those games when they happen, and I can't wait to watch those games on a Tuesday night when there's literally nothing else on. So I am very excited for this. But no, you're going through the bottom of the Conference USA, and you're like, this is a coin flip. That's not a good sign. You're not going bowling if that's the case, right? That's the thing. I will
that
say
means you are the bottom of Conference USA, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's funny that we've said don't be Gavin Wimsatt, and Gavin Wimsatt crucially fails the don't be Gavin Wimsatt test. So that's a negative. But no, there's a lot of bad things. I will say, though, that week 1 at Central Florida, it would be really... I don't think they're going to win, but it would be really funny if they even covered that spread. It'd be really funny. Again, I don't think it's going to happen, but it would be so funny. Like, it would be so funny. But no, this is gonna be a rough year for this team, regardless of whether or not they do the funniest thing in week 1 or not. But no, you can win that game. It's still gonna be a rough year for this team, straight up. Like it's gonna be, this is a rebuilding year, 100%.
Yeah. One other question, Duck, since you know the FCS better than we do, Delaware's got like a winning culture. Do you see that as a coin flip like I do here against Jacksonville State? They are stepping up nominally.
The good thing for them there is they have plenty of rest. I look to fade Delaware later on in the season because I do believe that the depth will become a problem, and they are very undersized in the defensive front seven. But Delaware is a proud bunch. They're a group that really plays hard. We've seen it every year at FCS, and when they play up in competition, they have played really well. So you've got this unique schedule situation with Delaware where they play one game in a 25-day stretch between September 20th and October 14th. They play one game in a 25-day stretch, and then they go to Jacksonville State. So I think it'll be a spot in the schedule for them. After they blast Delaware State, they go to Colorado, which I'm just hoping and praying we get a line above 3 touchdowns because I'll be all over Delaware there. Connecticut, FIU, then they get this bye, and then they play again. Western Kentucky, then they get the bye, and then I think they'll have a chance to get healthy. And I think they'll have a chance to kind of get back to the drawing board after 4 games at this level and kind of see what's working, what's not working. And I think they'll throw a punch at Jacksonville State. I think they'll have every chance in the world to go in there and run their stuff and give them a very competitive game, especially with all the rest.
Do they want that, though? Because Hugh Freeze, who was it? Jamie Chadwell said that's why Liberty stunk. Because they had a big, remember with that whole thing, they had a game that got canceled, and apparently that's why Liberty didn't do Liberty stuff last year. Do you remember that? That was the reason that they lost to Kennesaw State, according to him. It just threw everything off for the rest of the season.
Shame on him then as a coach. They had so much more talent. They were head and shoulders above everybody else. And you know what? It shouldn't have really been that way because, their game against App State was canceled because of the hurricane, which destroyed Western North Carolina, and App State was included in that, so they couldn't be on campus. But they struggled all season. It took a miracle for them to beat East Carolina. They were down 17-0 and came back in a game that was delayed by lightning for 4 hours and finished in the middle of the night. They beat Massachusetts by 1 point. They lost to Kennesaw State. That's
the real indictment.
They were down 17 in the fourth quarter against New Mexico State. Took a miracle for them to come back and beat New Mexico State. That whole season, they were really apathetic throughout several points of the season. After that magical 2023 season where they went undefeated in the regular season and then played in the Fiesta Bowl and got the doors blown off them. But their whole mantra was that they were just going to roll in there, get off the bus, and win. And they played that way all season. So in my opinion, I don't care what he says. It had nothing to do with the cancellation.
Yeah, no, I was being facetious. We can blame Robert and his Ducks for ruining that program. Good job, Robert. Congratulations, you jerk. All right, I have just backed into this one. San Jose State over 7.5. 7-6 in the first season under Ken Niumatalolo. Successful transition to the spread and shred offense. They lose 2 big receivers in Nick Nash and Justin Lockhart. I do that they have the Mountain West top returning quarterback of the 118 Apex, Walker Egat. He actually, that was his first year starting. I forget who, was it Emmett Brown? It was Emmett somebody, or am I just forgetting it, who started at the beginning of last year for them. But once he got there, the offense was much better. They have the top improvement metric in the Mountain West Conference on the offensive line. I had them as the third best defense in the conference. It should be among the most improved, with a high improvement metric there as well. They avoid Boise and UNLV to the extent that you believe in UNLV. I'm a little bit of a Boise skeptic, but they just have the most talent in this conference. So the schedule sets up really nicely here. I think the market is just missing the quarterback, number one, let alone the advantage they have. Last year, you and I were on different sides of this coin. I thought that they were going to be a little more successful than you did last year, Duck. And it was successful. And I think year two, when you don't have that learning curve, I think it'll go well. Now, they didn't exactly kill it in the portal. And you've got just these kind of nuts and bolts improvements here on, where are you? There you go. On just good improvement metric in year two here. And on the offensive line. There's just a lot of pieces I like here. I don't like them to win the conference. I think I picked them to make the conference title game. We just pooped over the middle class of the Mountain West. I think there's a lot of kind of easy wins here just in this conference. Is that not the case here, Duck?
Yeah, totally won the Mountain West scheduling lottery, avoiding Boise and UNLV. Could be a team that goes on this magical run and is vying to make the playoffs out of the group of five if they have could.
I have them as a dog in one game.
Yeah, and similar to Boise last year when they went to Oregon, all you really need to do is go out and have a good showing against Texas. If you lose 55-10, that's bad. If you lose 35-27, that's good. And so that's really all they have to do there. But I've also got spots that are circled at Wyoming and at Utah State back-to-back at elevation. And I could see them dropping one of those just because you're in the mountains, you're playing at elevation, which is just something they're not used to. Doing it twice in a row on the road. Could have some tired legs on defense, so could be troubling there. But you get to host Hawaii, you get to host Air Force. Your winnables in conference play are, on paper, at least manageable. You get all the bottom teams in the league.
Yeah.
This is a group that could go undefeated in Mountain West play. Now, to make the championship game, I think, is what? Plus 190, plus 200?
Plus 200?
To make the championship game.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's... If you're looking at San Jose State just to make the Mountain West championship game, they go 7-1 in league play, and they're doing that.
Yeah,
and
my Chihuahua got excited at that one. I don't know if you heard. She likes
I heard.
it.
Yes.
Yeah,
so,
this isn't a team that and believe me, if they got to the playoff, my gosh, it would be ugly. And it's not all schedule, but boy, the schedule gives them a really nice tailwind.
Yeah, just let's see what the power ratings say for how many Mountain West games they'll be favored in. And they'll have every chance in the world to defeat Stanford, Idaho. I think Central Michigan can actually go in there and give them a game. If this crosses 14, I'm all over Central Michigan in week one. With the style of offense they're going to...
First year?
Yeah.
The first game of the new guy?
Big on big. They're going to run 3 tight ends. They're going to squeeze that game down. It's going to be hard to get margin on Central Michigan. I firmly believe that. If we see 14, it'll be absolutely a play for me. But the rest of the way, I could see them being favored by 6 or 7 against Fresno. I could see them being favored by 8 or 9 against San Diego State, and then major favorites the rest of the way: New Mexico, Nevada, Utah State, Wyoming, Hawaii. As long as they don't trip up on the road in one of those 2 back-to-backs.
Yeah. I think Utah State's really bad this year. I totally appreciate the point about the double elevation, but man, they're in a bad spot at quarterback.
Very bad.
Yeah. Okay. Robert, let me ask you.
My point being, too, is I think it's a good play over 7.5, and I think you could kind of split that with to make the conference championship at plus 200. You're getting a little price improvement on the VIG, and they just have to make the game. They don't even have to win it.
Yeah, it's a nice, generous alt line. Plus, you can, I like that.
They're correlated.
Robert, I'm sticking you with the tough questions here. Would you favor San Jose State over Stanford at this point?
I think so, yeah. I think, Stanford is in a pretty rough shape, and this is actually, a pretty legit... This should be a pretty legit team. Obviously, they're not going to beat Texas, but Central Michigan, only 12.5 or 12.5 favorites week 1. That seems pretty low. Again, you've got like New Mexico. The schedule is pretty easy. I think the toughest is Stanford and Air Force. That's not crazy at all. That's a pretty easy schedule, to be honest with you.
After Texas, yeah.
But to be fair, though, for conference championships, that doesn't really matter, though, right? To be fair, right? You're right, 100%. But in terms of conference, Texas doesn't matter.
Stanford's in the ACC.
And Stanford, too, right? But that's the thing. So you can easily count to... So you're basically this is saying 50-50 that they lose to Texas, which is the given. Stanford and Air Force and...
After that, you got to stretch for another loss, don't you?
What are we looking at? Nevada? Hawaii?
Who's the next best team? It gets really... Hawaii, right? Duck really pointed that out to me last year. I took that for granted. I didn't really appreciate that angle, but Road Hawaii is not home Hawaii.
No, it is not.
You go off a cliff here in terms of the schedule. And you have the best quarterback, right? And I like Niumatalolo. It's not like he's learning. If we do the Dan Mullen exercise here, okay, in conference, which of these coaches is better than Niumatalolo? Maybe Calhoun. That's it, right? It's this, yeah. I might just goose this at the expense of UNLV under. Yeah, a lot of easy ones there.
I do have their road trip to San Diego State and their home bout with Fresno State priced a little closer than what you might, suggesting win percentages. It looks like you've got them about 10 to 12 point favorites in those games, and I got it closer to 5. But
wow, against San Diego. Okay,
on the road,
I'm glad you brought that up. What does San Diego State do good this year, besides head coach? I like Sean Lewis, but man, they have nothing to build on, except like for returning experience that really did nothing last year. I don't know what they do good. We kind of default to say, they'll have a good passing game, but they're starting over at quarterback too, aren't they?
Yeah, second year in the system, they want to run the football, and they need a mobile, athletic quarterback to really unlock what they want to do. They had it at Kent State. They didn't have it last year. I don't think any team had worse quarterback play in Mountain West play than San Diego State did throughout the entirety of the season. And now you've got Jaden Denegal who's going to start. They're going to have some packages for Bert Emanuel. And I think that really does unlock a lot of what they want to do offensively. I think with the second year in the system, when you're changing schemes more often than not, now it didn't happen this way necessarily at San Jose State, but when you're changing schemes and you're going from one extreme to the next, it's really hard to develop the continuity and just have it click. And it was just so bad last year for San Diego State. But I think we'll see them improve in ways that you'll be stunned by. I think that he'll get that clicking with the mobile quarterback, with a guy who can understand the offense. You've got a second year in the system for the guys on the offensive line. And really their defense last year, it wasn't overly great, but you've got 10 guys back from that defense that really kept them in some games last year in league play. It was a group that was close. I mean, San Diego State, you got a 3-point loss against Washington State. You lost by 5 against New Mexico. You lost by 1 against Central Michigan. There were some opportunities for them to be a little bit better than what that 3-9 record was. So, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I think San Diego State's a bowl team this year. I took over 4.5.
Wow.
And okay. I don't bet overs. I do not bet overs. I bet 21 regular season wins. 19 of them were unders.
Can I ask who the other one was? San Diego State and?
Yeah, Middle Tennessee over 4.5.
Boy, okay. The half of a half team. Middle Tennessee. But year 2 of Derek Mason. Is that the angle there?
Yeah, incremental improvement for Middle Tennessee on offense and defense. Second year in the system now, in the new system for Nicholas Vattiato. The schedule is just so conducive for me. If you go through the Middle Tennessee schedule, and I didn't mean to hijack this on San Jose, but
no,
Middle Tennessee,
they're a hard read for me. So
they'll beat Austin Peay. They'll have a chance to beat Nevada. They'll have a chance to beat Marshall, who's descending. Kennesaw State, Missouri State, Delaware, Jacksonville State, Sam Houston, New Mexico State. I've got 9 or 10 games that are winnable on this schedule for Middle Tennessee. Really, the only 2 out of reach would be at Wisconsin and then potentially at Western Kentucky, which is a significant rivalry for both of those teams. Maybe it's one of those where you throw out the record books.
Yeah, they miss Liberty, huh?
Middle Tennessee has every opportunity to be really a more improved team in the record column this year.
And Mason should recruit there too, being the former Vandy guy as well.
Yeah.
Okay, you just mentioned this team, and now I'm going to basically zig after the zag, or whatever they say. Wisconsin under 5.5 minus 165. This just comes down to it's just not working, right? It hasn't worked, and I really don't like how you're going to rectify the Phil Longo sin with Jeff Grimes and Billy Edwards. I need to be convinced of that. The defense is starting from well behind in the conference. 2.9 is... Let me grab my laser here. 2.9 is a really poor defensive power rating for a Big Ten team. And this schedule is super unforgiving. From Alabama through Indiana, and I'm an Illinois skeptic, so I'll be generous and cut it off there. This is just unbelievable. Alabama, Maryland, breather. Okay, then Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, Oregon, Washington, Indiana. My gosh. I don't know if is this just like money going to the sticker again and just not underappreciating the schedule? Is as simple as that, Duck? Or maybe you don't believe it. Maybe you don't think under's a play here.
Oh, no, under's absolutely the play. Just go up and down the slate. I don't think there's a more brutal 4-game stretch for any team in America than that middle 4 where they go to Michigan, they host Iowa, they host Ohio State, and then they go to Oregon. Just absolutely brutal. And then if you think anything lightens up during the last third of the way, they get Washington coming in off a bye. They got to go to Indiana, Illinois, and then at Minnesota to close things out. Your winnables on the slate are Miami of Ohio, Middle Tennessee, and Maryland. And then you're probably going to have to pull 3 upsets where you're a touchdown dog to go bowling. So when you look at trying to price this win total, if you're 7-point underdogs, you're probably plus 212 on the money line, and you have to do that 3 times in order to go bowling. Who are they beating as at least 7-point underdogs or more? Michigan's off a bye, Iowa's off a bye, Washington's off a bye. You got to go to Indiana, you got to go to Oregon, you go to Michigan, just teams that are just superior talent and scheme-wise to what you bring to the table. I'm not saying this team won't cover some spreads this year, and they might I could see them throwing a scare into Ohio State at home. They could throw a scare into it. What's Ohio State going to be? Think about it this way. Ohio State goes to Washington, and then they got to come back for Minnesota, which they'll probably beat handily. And then you go to Illinois, which will be a real scare the crap out of Ohio State. Illinois will give them everything they can handle. And then you're back on the road for the second of back-to-backs at Wisconsin before you hit the bye. I could see Wisconsin catching 18.5, and you look up in the fourth quarter and they're down 6 with the ball. Yeah, I could absolutely see something like that happening. I could see that happening with them hosting Illinois. I could see them being competitive, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to notch wins. And I think when you look at a team that has to have so close but yet so far, there's a big difference between covering big spreads and actually winning these games on the field and having to pull 3 outright upsets for this win total to lose.
Yeah.
You're playing at Minnesota last game of the season, and you're not playing to make a bowl game there. You're playing to avoid 4-8. I just don't see it. I don't see it this year. I've had plenty of conversations with people, and we all kind of see it the same way, and it's just that the schedule is so brutal. You're betting on Billy Edwards or Danny O'Neal to quarterback this system, 2 people I'm not high on, and you just don't have enough. You don't have enough horses that are pulling the trolley.
It's the quarterback position it's really concerning here. Robert, I've used this kind of framework a couple times, and I think it's really appropriate here. My question about this team was, what's the identity besides bad quarterback play? Let me frame it a different way. Again, going back to the example I like to use, when Army scared Oklahoma, even though Army was nowhere near as good as Oklahoma, I think that was in 19 or 21. When you saw that score, okay, Army did the Army thing, and that's how they made it competitive. What's the Wisconsin thing where it's, that's how they competed with Iowa or Michigan? What's the Wisconsin thing?
There is no Wisconsin thing. It's just lose. Like, that's... And that's the thing. There has not been... It's not, oh, man, Wisconsin's going to come in there. They're going to ground pound. And, no, that's not a thing they do anymore. They're not good at running. They're not good at passing. They're not good at defense. Like, they're good. Like, they're an okay-ish team, but not when you compare them to the top teams in the country. If they're playing in, like, the Sun Belt or something, great team. MAC, yeah, okay. Amazing team. But they're not playing in that conference. They're playing in the Big Ten, right? That's the thing. So they're not as good as the top teams in the league, and they play most of them. And then they also play Alabama for good measure. So I don't know what are you supposed to do here. I don't know. This is going to be a rough year, and this might be it for Luke Finkel here.
I didn't want to get carried away, but like when he was talking about the Minnesota game, I wanted to say not get carried away, but they might be playing under a different coach too.
Yeah. Now I will say this: I think that Wisconsin. I won't be surprised at all. I think that they will pound Miami of Ohio in the opener, and I think that they will pound. I think they'll pound Middle Tennessee in week 2.
Yeah,
and you might get a little fool's
taking in that one, pal.
Yeah, and you might get a little fool's gold with them 2-0, a couple blowout wins going down to Tuscaloosa, but it will be very ugly. So circle that one as maybe a little value play on Alabama in week 3.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's true. Oh, my gosh.
And I think of Miami of Ohio, too, going to be an upper-tier MAC team, but you don't return any starters on offense. You have Daquan Finn coming in, but that offensive line is all completely brand-new players who don't have starting experience at the FBS level, and you're trying to figure out the calls and the in-game when you're heat of the battle in the trenches, and you're trying to figure it out in that environment. I could see that first game of the season going very sideways for Miami of Ohio, and then... You get some of this feel good with Wisconsin. They blast Miami, Ohio. They blast Middle Tennessee. Oh, Wisconsin's back. They've got everything figured out. They go to Tuscaloosa. They're only catching 16. Oof, not enough.
Yeah, that's a really good call. I like that.
I've got that circled for later.
Yeah, good call. All right, I think this might be my last one here. Nope, but it's my last season total. This just kind of snuck on. I didn't even mention it when we did the Sun Belt total. And you know what? I screwed up the notes here. I put the notes for Louisiana Monroe. Okay. Sorry. Louisiana Monroe, I have the right schedule. So ignore all this, people at home. I apologize. I do 120 of these plus this one. So I'll just verbalize it. And I'm curious, Duck, if this name even means anything to you. Okay, here's the name that everybody knows. Bryant Vincent, just proven head coach. Let's not forget, he won 7 games at UAB in a very transition year. Did a good job with the New Mexico offense, too. Probably should have gotten the UAB job. Really improved this team in year 1. This is a year 2 play on him. And then also, his quarterback, Aiden Armenta, really struggled against the bigger teams. And he was, like, strangely functional plus against G5 teams. And I think this is way under the radar. There's no way anybody's pricing that in at all. It's basically an Aiden Armenta play, and people like you and I might know it. You were nodding a little bit. Are you down with the Aiden Armenta crew here?
Yeah, as long as they can run the ball. They run the ball 66% of the time, and the style of play is such to where they are very slow pace. They absolutely want to truncate these games down and limit the possessions. They want to grind the clock. They want to possess the ball, stay on the field, and play keep away. And they did that successfully last season several times. Had a really bad run of luck, too. They had Marshall dead to rights and couldn't close it out. They could have beaten Arkansas State and could have beaten Louisiana and could have gone bowling, and they couldn't close it out after a 5-1 start, so have to feel some disappointment there for the way last season ended. But we've got winnables on the schedule against St. Francis. At UTEP has to be considered certainly winnable when you factor in the run defense for UTEP and the transient nature of what they bring back defensively. I won't give them a 74% chance to win, but I'll certainly give them a chance to go in there and compete. Arkansas State's absolutely a game that they have to have circled in red ink for the way they lost that one last year. At Coastal Carolina is certainly winnable. Troy, South Alabama.
Get there pretty easily. I don't think I'm being too aggressive in any of those last 4 specials.
No, I don't think so. I think you probably lied. I think I'd give them a better chance to beat South Alabama than 2-1.
Yeah, maybe a little heavy on Old Dominion, but it's a home game. Old Dominion's got a legit quarterback here. Yeah. The other thing, too, is like I said, talking about Southern Miss, there's a lot of bad stuff at the bottom of the West. A lot of easy wins. Not too hard just to start with a nice tailwind there in terms of 3 easy ones. Robert, I apologize for the verbiage being wrong here, but like I said, I snuck this one up on you too because I didn't even mention I said I liked this team when we did the Sun Belt West, but I didn't really mention the overs as playable. The schedule just sets up nicely for him, doesn't it?
It's a nice schedule, but just looking down that column, it's very like win this game and then just lose the next game. 95% against FCS team, great. 1% against Alabama, not great, right? Then okay, but there's a bunch of stuff where it's okay. You got Northwestern, and like it's not a bad schedule, 100%. But at the same point in time, there's a lot of like that you basically got to get that win. You better be over 4.5 by the time you get to the end there, because you got Texas State and Louisiana, right? So now you can easily do it. You could see a clear path of St. Francis, UTEP, Arkansas State, Coastal, and Troy, and I believe that is your 5 right there. And then you can get Old Dominion as your 6 at the bowl game. But then you've got, it's a path. I don't love it, but the thing is, it's like, I like it. It's not bad. I want to see where this team goes. I think this team is going to be a spot play for me. It's going to be like, I'll play them here, I'll play them there. Probably at UTEP is where I'm going to start playing them. Because you're not, like, you're going to, well, even the spread against St. Francis, I don't even know. And then what's the spread against Alabama? Like 40-something? So this is the thing. So you probably, week 3, you start looking at this team and you can start finding the places to play them. I just don't see playing them until then. That'd be my take on it.
Duck, you think I'm a little aggressive here with that win probability against UTEP?
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't lay points with ULM on the road.
Okay.
No,
this is interesting. I'm glad we're talking about this. UTEP was really bad. I wanted to like them, and that coach he did not impress. I'll just say that. My guy went to overtime against Kennesaw State. Let's not forget that, okay? I believe Kennesaw State might have still been winless at that point. I don't know what UTEP does, and I'm going to rely on, maybe to my own detriment, I think the Sun Belt is a lot better than UTEP. And look, this isn't like SEC against MAC, but I think there is a distinct difference here. I don't think UTEP's that good. I don't know. Wow. What is there anything that you like about UTEP, or is it just not believing fully in ULM at this point?
I could see if they can just figure out the quarterback play, and I don't love Skylar Locklear, and I don't know if they're going to land on him. They're still in a battle in fall camp, this late in fall camp, with him and Malachi Nelson and Cade McConnell. They haven't decided. I've been looking at the reports every day. I think if you can get a quarterback that can grasp the system, they've got a loaded receiver room, and they've got 7 guys back on the offensive line that were in the 2 deep that played last year, so they have a little more continuity. And ULM defended the pass last year, but 2 or 3 of those secondary players are gone. A couple of them left after spring, so you're now in scramble mode to shore up your secondary. I'm just not sure. I wouldn't lay points on the road with this bunch. I will say, defensively, I think ULM will be an upper half, top half of the Sun Belt defense. I would absolutely lay it. I don't care what the number is against St. Francis. I'm hoping it comes out under 3 touchdowns. You bet them in week 1 covering the number against St. Francis. And then they go to Northwestern October 4th. Northwestern comes off of hosting UCLA, and the next week they go to Penn State. What is Lujan going to do with that Northwestern offense? They're going to be a little bit more dynamic, but that's easily one where you get that game under control, you grind the clock, and you get out of there. And I bet ULM's catching 22.5 or so, and I could certainly see ULM going up there to Chicago and giving them at least a quasi-competitive game, certainly keeping it within a big number. This group, you'll be able to run it all day on Coastal Carolina. You'll be able to run on South Alabama. You'll be able to run on Texas State. How many times have we seen Texas State lose as 3-touchdown favorites? It's not out of the realm of possibility for them to go in there and grind the game down, play keep away, and run the ball on those guys. Not out of the question at all. Okay. Yeah, I think there's plenty of opportunity for Louisiana Monroe. I'm not running to the window to guarantee that this team's going bowling, but plenty of winnable spot. My goodness, Arkansas State, what a great spot that is for them. Look at what Arkansas State has to do. You've got Arkansas and Iowa State before, and then you've got this quirky road trip to Kennesaw, a place they've never played, and then you got to go to ULM second of back-to-back before hosting Texas State, yeah, that's one of those under the radar. We forget about ULM in that spot.
Who's a better coach in that one, Butch Jones or Bryant Vincent? Is that?
I think Butch
like
Jones
I
is a
bad
joke.
milk the face you made with that one.
Arkansas State was so fortuitous last season. They were 8-5 and probably should have been 5-7. I think we'll see major step back from Arkansas State this upcoming year.
That's another team. I was shocked at their record because their metrics were so bad. When I look at, I know basically how they rank within my rankings, and I looked up. I couldn't believe they're 8-5. Yeah, that'll regress for sure. All right. No laughing at this one. Okay, Robert's already had his chuckle about this. This is just, the whole thing here is the Corey Heatherman play. And Robert's heard me say this probably 4 or 5 times, and he's probably sick of the discussion, but I think this is almost as transformational as Jim Knowles to Ohio State and Mike Elko to Notre Dame. Corey Heatherman is the next great DC. And that is what really helped it. Well, okay. Let's just be careful here. That was one of the biggest drawbacks on this team that held this team back, aside from the head coach. So, really, as I put it here, I'm hoping that Heatherman just narrows the window for Mario to do the Mario thing. But the other thing, too, is I think Cade Klubnik is so overrated. I think that makes Clemson overrated. I'm not saying that Clemson money is dead money in the pool, but I think that there's a lot of value here because of just too much money going to Clemson. It's not the toughest ACC schedule in the world either. It's just to win the ACC, and maybe I can hedge it if I get to the championship game. This is where you pat me on the head and say, that's a cute opinion there, Buck, but no way. So go ahead and advise me otherwise, Duck.
USC at times has had this problem, and Miami has been just riddled by the culture of apathy, and I just don't bet into that. We saw it last year on numerous occasions. They should have been defeated by Virginia Tech. They should have been defeated by California. They should have been defeated by Louisville, and they escape all of those. They beat Duke by 22, but they were only up by 1 point in the fourth quarter. They scored 3 touchdowns in the second half of the fourth quarter to blow out that margin. And then you lose to Georgia Tech and you lose to Syracuse. The culture of apathy there is so contagious in a bad way, and I'm just not interested in betting into that. I say that because it's not out of the realm of possibility at all, in my opinion, that they lose the opener to Notre Dame. They could lose to Florida. They could lose to SMU. And if you got a couple of losses, you close your season at Virginia Tech and at Pittsburgh in the cold, those guys aren't going to want to be there. There's just no way. And so you're banking on this team really running the table in order to give themselves a shot, and I just don't want to bet into that. If you think Clemson is overrated, which I am in that camp as well, maybe the team to bet on to win the league is Georgia Tech. And I say that because they host Clemson in week 3. It's an 11 a.m. kick. They get the game at home. They're 8.5-point dogs. Not out of the realm of possibility that they win that game at all. Mm-mm. And then if you look at Georgia Tech the rest of the way in ACC play, there's no SMU, there's no Miami, there's no Florida State. Your remaining league games are Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, Duke, Syracuse, NC State, Boston College, and Pittsburgh. And you'll be favored in every one of those. At 14-1, the play would be Georgia Tech to win the league, and then if they get to the game, you can figure out what you need to do as far as hedging out or whatever else. Even if they lose to Clemson, you could still run the table and get in at 7-1 in league play. I don't know if I want to put my hard-earned American dollars behind the culture of apathy. Carson Beck, is he great or did he play for a great team? Mario Cristobal is going to do Mario Cristobal things. I don't want to talk you off the play, but it's just not for me. I'd rather take 14-1 with Georgia Tech and watch those guys just steamroll through the bottom half of the ACC because they won the ACC scheduling lottery.
You make a good point, and I would also say, and I don't want to say they're clunky. It's a little too old school for me, but I don't know. You make a lot of money betting on Jerry Kill, whether he's coaching at Northern Illinois, Minnesota, or Vanderbilt, right?
Or New Mexico State, yeah.
Yes. Don't overlook you would know this because you're kind of like the revenge historian. Georgia Tech at some point is going to avenge like how Dabo really was a dick to the Jeff Collins teams. At some point, that's gonna open a real vein of blood. And I don't know if it's this year, but I could actually see that being. You've got the Overlook team that is legitimately, I don't know if I say they're badasses, but they are physical on both sides of the ball. And a team that's overrated and a quarterback that's, I don't know if Klubnik has his head in the clouds, but he's gotten a lot of publicity. I could actually see that really go in Georgia Tech's way. That's interesting. And it's 8.5. That almost feels like the something stinks or somebody knows something line.
Oh, I assure you I'll be on Georgia Tech. I assure you of that. And then I'll be fading Georgia Tech against the number the following week when they're laying 28.5 hosting Temple.
There you go. Okay,
but
I can join you there. You get
oh, yes, you can. That's a classic sandwich. But yeah, if I'm Brent Key, I'm playing that footage of the 2020 season when they lost 73-7 against Clemson, and Clemson was just the intentionality behind the scoring late was just so grotesque. Yeah, that's what you play in the locker room the entire week.
Absolutely, and you just pretend that it wasn't a Jeff Collins thing because it was a Jeff Collins thing because he was pretty hateable guy. So, Robert, you've heard the speech like 5 times. Have I convinced you with the Corey Heatherman thing or no?
No.
Okay.
The thing is, honestly, it's at this point more of a play just on Carson Beck, or rather against Carson Beck. Sure, your defense could be better. That defense was horrific, right? It's not, okay, if they're a step away or a year away. No, they're like a complete teardown rebuild away. So that's the thing. I will also say that Minnesota might have somewhat inflated defensive stats because of the Big Ten West, and still some of the Big Ten offenses aren't the greatest. I think he's a great DC, but I think this is a multi-year rebuild on defense, and I think on offense they're going to take a step back, and I think you meet in the middle, that's still like 3 losses. I don't think that's an improvement from last year.
I think there's one other thing. I'm going to check it right now, but I think there's one other thing that could really be working against me. I don't have it open. I think Stuart Mandel might have picked Miami to win the ACC. That might be the absolute kiss of death.
The Jim Cramer kiss of death.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Don't even start me with that. Okay. I still might make a small play on that, but you guys make good points. All right. Lastly, Heisman Trophy futures. I've tipped my hand on a couple of these. Robert, I'll let you go first. Where do you see any value in this board? This is from Bet365, if at all.
I think you have to have something on Archie Manning. I don't. It's not so much a belief in Texas, and I've said this a couple times. I've bet Archie Manning to win the Heisman, but not Texas to win the SEC and not Texas to win the national championship. I think if Archie Manning even remotely looks good, right? Here's the thing. If they beat Texas week 1, and it's not the first game, but it's almost basically the first game of the season. What's Archie Manning the next day, or on Monday, the week after the first week of the season?
You mean Ohio State? You said Texas.
Sorry, yes. If Archie Manning beats Ohio State in basically the first game of the season, what is he? Assuming he looked good, what is he the next week? Is he 2-1, 250 plus 150? Like he's gonna be very maybe not plus 150, but like plus 250 plus 200. That's what the price for him is going to be after that. And again, and I said this before, I think Sark can cost him the SEC championship game, but I don't think Sark is going to cost him the Heisman if he looks good. That's a fact. That being said, though, this board is just, what is this board? Nussmeier, who was okay, is the second favorite. Klubnik, who is massively overrated, is the third favorite. Jeremiah Smith, who's going to have a freshman throwing to him, is the fourth favorite. Lenore Sellers is actually good. Drew Aller is fine. Ty Simpson, that's questionable. Carson Beck, why is Carson Beck here? Dante Moore, okay, that I could actually, that's not a horrible bet. DJ Legway, maybe. Julian Sand. It's the top part there, which Cleveland has quite a big percentage of this market. I'm just looking at this and it's just why are these people here? Right, Jackson Arnold there is at 40-1. Whereas Where is it? The Oklahoma quarterback is Mateer, right? Where is Mateer?
Yeah, he's up there at 25.
He's 25. Okay, so that at least makes sense. I still think 41 is wrong for Jackson Arnold. But again, that's something.
Oh.
Like, this is the thing. There's a lot here where it's just like, this number is just wrong. Like, I don't think, like, Nicole Amelea at 75 to 1, Miller Moss at 50 to 1. Like, you have to think, it's partly media, but it's also partly media expectations. Who can massively outperform media expectations? I think, and we talked about this in the Notre Dame podcast, I don't hate a bet there on Jeremiah Love. Again, I feel like had it not been for Travis Hunter there being a two-way player, they would have given it to Ashton Jeanty. And I feel like they're going to be like, we're going to give it to a running back last year, we just didn't. Maybe we give it to a running back this year. It was like when Bryce Young won the Heisman with Alabama. And I feel like him winning the Heisman was like payback for Mac Jones not winning the Heisman before on that championship team. And I feel like this is the thing where they're like, sometimes it's like a makeup Heisman, and I feel like they want to make it up to the running back position. That's a potential option. I don't know. The media does a lot of very weird media things, and it's very impossible to predict, but you could just start making bets on what is more likely than the books think it is. That's my take on it.
Yeah, let me just go through a few things that Robert brought up there. Duck, if a guy is 40 to 1 to win the Heisman, should he be the starter at Auburn by now?
Probably, yes.
Yeah, that's not the case though. So yeah, not a fan of that. The Arch Manning thing, Robert makes a good point, and I think, as I put it, Sark is really good at getting quarterback stat empty calories. I think that helps. I need to be convinced, and I don't want to take him as the favorite, especially, I don't know. What do you think of Arch Manning? Not as a player, but as a Heisman bet.
The voting has changed so significantly for this award because all the games are on TV. There are so many media narratives. There's so much hype surrounding a lot of these players. It used to be a situation where if you played on the West Coast and all the East Coast voters, which the majority of them were, didn't stay up late and watch the game on pay-per-view or whatever, then you just weren't getting voted for. You also had this regional sort of aspect of the Heisman Trophy and the voting where you had some collusion where people were going to vote for their guy. A lot of that's come out the window now. Over the last 10 years, we've seen 8 quarterbacks win the award, but we've also seen mega long shots, 100 to 1, 150 to 1 preseason. We've seen those guys shoot up the board quickly because you have a team that starts really hot and they just get the momentum behind them from the media fanfare and the narrative. Travis Hunter, and there's been others that have shown that your team doesn't have to be playing for a national championship in order for you to gain momentum in this market. And so you really just got to be you got to be wearing the right helmet. You got to have all the fanfare behind you. You've got to have some sort of a narrative that the media can really sink their teeth in. I think Arch Manning fits that. I think Nussmeier fits that. I think John Mateer fits that at Oklahoma. Guys that have worn the helmet of players that have won it before, people that could have these hyperbolic seasons that they go off the map. I think that those 3 guys at least fit that kind of narrative and mold. Now, I don't think there's a lot of value, as a lot of these numbers have come down from the summer, so the value is somewhat gone. I will tell you this. I took a little money on Devon Dampier when it was 100 to 1. I took a little money on Baron Morton when it was 300 to 1.
Oh, don't say that.
Let me just tell you this.
Yes. You're never going to convince me on Baron Morton, but please go ahead. I want to hear your argument.
If they go 10-2 and make the playoff and he's thrown for 5,000 yards?
Yeah, it's the 5,000 yards I have a hard time seeing.
I put the over-under for the first 2 weeks at 984.
Okay, it's a great price. Just that's a sneakily tough defensive conference too, and he's. I don't think he's in the top half of quarterbacks there. Probably. If it happens, that's the play. That's the way to leverage it. Is that a fair statement?
It could be Hoover.
Yeah.
Like
Could
that.
tear up that league.
Yep.
It could
Yep.
be.
Is Hoover even on here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's 100 to 1 there at the very end.
There we go. Okay.
Demond Williams as well.
Yeah.
You've got to have a narrative. You've got to have overperformance of expectations. Admittedly, this is not really a market I sink my teeth into with any extreme regularity, and I don't tie up a lot of money of my bankroll in this market, but there were a couple of names that I thought, ooh, that's starting quarterback at Texas Tech, could be the magical season, throwing the ball around a ton. 300 to 1 was just ridiculous. Now, maybe not, but same thing with Devon Dampier. If he goes in there and tears up the Big 12, I could see the media sinking their teeth into some narratives, just like they did with Genty played the Mountain West. He was a great running back, but he played on a team with a far superior trench play, and you plug anyone in there and they're going to run for 1,500 yards. I don't know.
So let me ask you about two. One that I think there's a solid, and the one's just like a flyer. I can't see Notre Dame losing more than one game. And I just think Jeremiah Love at 33 to 1 is just crazy value. He's already on the grid, but he doesn't have the publicity of Arch Manning, but it's not going to be like, oh, who is this guy? Notre Dame, my gosh, it's a publicity machine. Do you think there's any kind of, and again, this isn't something where you tread deeply here. If you're saying there's a narrative, doesn't that seem to be an easy one? If you think Notre Dame's going to be 11-1, doesn't there seem to be some kind of value there?
I think there's more value in whoever the starting quarterback is.
If CJ Carr was even the starter, really?
Yeah, I think you sink your teeth into the narrative that the starting quarterback at Notre Dame leading them to a magical season. They're going to make the playoff. Rah, rah, it's Notre Dame. They get all this sort of media attention. I think the quarterback at Notre Dame is an easy one.
Wow, okay. And I guess the reason
it's just not a running back. It's just not a running back award. It's a quarterback award anymore. 12 of the last 15 years, quarterbacks.
Yeah. And when I was looking at the Notre Dame preview, it just sized up to me where it seemed like they would go run heavy too. Because their offensive line is scary good. As a USC guy, their offensive line, I think, is going to be the best in the country. And it's going to be an easy way to break in the quarterback. And I think his numbers are going to, I don't say dwarf, but I think they'll be a bigger story. But you make a good point. That's not the Heisman position. The other one here is just Demond Williams. Just he has and that chart I put together, his start is so crazy. And like I said, they've got winnable games against named teams. And if he wins a couple of those, this could be the one that's from out of nowhere. Has Washington won a Heisman before?
No,
Mike should have won.
Penix didn't.
Yeah.
Penix probably should have won. Or Penix didn't win that one. Did he win that one?
No.
Who won that one? Was it Daniels?
Yeah, it was CJ. That was Jaden Daniels. Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because Washington just sucked for 3 weeks.
Yep. Yeah, and that's going back. Like, you can go way back. Corey Dillon could have been in there. Tuiasa Sopo could have been in there. Jake Locker could have been in there. There was a lot of the collusion in the voting, but just didn't have enough voters on the West Coast.
Devin, a hedge. So go ahead.
I could absolutely see that being something where they get on a roll and he just tears up the Big Ten, and you're going to have name opponents. You're going to have Ohio State, Michigan, Illinois. You could derail Illinois, Oregon at the end. Yeah, I could see that, but it's going to require 9-3 or better. It's going to require you to potentially sneak into the playoff as that third or fourth Big Ten participant. There's a lot that has to happen, and that's why it's 75 to 1, but I could see a path for them to really have him take off. And I think he has the talent to do. I think Will Rogers held them back significantly last year. He might just come out and break loose and clip my wings and let me fly.
Yes. Is there a way, I'm not the best at hedging, say that you're sitting on a Heisman ticket that's 150 to 1 for a finalist, and he's a finalist. Do you just hedge it just by betting the other guys as you figure they have chances and split the difference? Does that make sense? Is it possible, or just, I guess it comes down to, they don't even have they settled on how many finalists there are each year? Does it still vary?
I think it's 3 that go to New York.
All right, so that makes it easier to hedge then. If your guy's a finalist, you have to wait till the finalists are announced, though. Otherwise, it's too crazy.
A lot of books will let you cash out.
Huh.
So if you had 150 to 1 and he's in New York, you can cash that out for significant payday.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, a lot of them will let you cash out.
Okay, I just have to fly to Vegas to do it, right, or wherever I.
If you're gonna, if you're gonna bet the ticket
California.
if you're gonna have a paper ticket, no cash out option.
Okay, all right.
So you can talk to your old pal in North Carolina about placing the bet for you and then letting you
There we
cash
go.
out if you want. That's what you do.
What a gentleman you are. Okay, cool. All right, guys, I enjoyed this. I am airborne to Vegas in less than 24 hours. I appreciate the input. We'll be back with Island Time probably after the Week 1 games. I don't know if we'd have enough after Week 0. Depending on how it goes, I don't know if it's a content-rich weekend. Should we just talk real quick? Are there any Week 0 games that catch your eye in terms of that are bettable?
I like some angles in them. I like Iowa State. I like Kansas to cover, and I like Western Kentucky to cover. Other than that, not a ton more. I'm mostly just going to watch, I think. This isn't really this isn't a spend everything in 1 week kind of thing. It's pace yourself, but just be happy football's back.
Yeah, what about you, Duck?
I took Idaho State UNLV over. Idaho State's defense is bottom of the barrel bad by FCS standards, 121st in the run metrics, 253 yards per game and 5.7 yards per carry surrendered on the ground last year. 19-3 touchdown to interception ratio surrendered last year for Idaho State. Just very little resistance defensively. It's going to be really bad again for them. But they've got their quarterback Jordan Cook, who comes back from injury. He was hurt all of 2024. 2023, they threw the ball around about 70% of plays and at times had a tendency to really abandon the run. I think with UNLV, you'll see them play an aggressive defense under Paul Gunther. They're going to send the blitz from several areas. Now, that could be feast or famine. You might get some turnovers and set up some cheap scores. You might give up some big explosives. But took Idaho State UNLV over that total. I played Fresno earlier in the summer. I do have it at 14.5. But Fresno State's going to go in there. They're going to really condense the game down. They're going to play with some tight ends, run the ball. Kansas lost so much stinking production last year. 38 seniors lost. Complete rebuild on the offensive line. Program leader, all-time rusher Devin Neal is gone. Top 7 pass catchers are gone. Tons of talent lost on defense. It's just I know the system works. I like Lance Leopold as a coach. But Jalen Daniels, once you have a bad back, you never have a good back. And
Yeah.
we saw it last year, the first 6 games of the season, 5 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and just didn't look like himself. I'm not going to say that Kansas is going to be garbage, although we talked about this on the Big 12 preview. I went under the win total. I think Kansas will be fine, but to get a ton of margin in Week 1, a lot of people are betting them just because they're opening up their new stadium. Now, so what's going to happen on the field? So I think Fresno's going to go in there and throw a punch. I think they have excellent coordinator hires. The guy scheming it up on defense, Nick Benedetto, who comes over from Northern Illinois. When you look at the red zone performance, third down performance, limiting explosives, all things Northern Illinois did really well. He's got a lot of those pieces that came over to Fresno State. I think Fresno will be just fine. We saw that last year with Fresno State. We've seen them time and time again when they play up. They have a tendency to throw their best punch, and I think they'll go in there and give them a competitive game.
I can see that too. But boy, for coach's first game, proven coach though, that's what makes it tough. I can definitely see the case there. Robert, you and I both poo-pooed Sam Houston's chances this year, and we like Western Kentucky. Does that line of 10 seem a little short to you?
Yeah, I think so. Remember, it is at Western Kentucky, so yeah, I'm going to take Western Kentucky there. It's just 10.5. 2 scores really shouldn't be too difficult at all.
Yeah, what are we missing? Geez, you have a total overhaul in terms of scheme, Duck. Are we missing something here?
So Sam Houston is going to play blazing fast. They run the dairy raid is what they call it with Phil Longo. But they are still going to run the ball. And Western Kentucky last year surrendered 5.2 yards per carry in conference play on the ground and gave up 3,000 yards rushing for the entirety of the season. And they're fully rebuilding the front 7. So what I can see here is this could go one of 2 ways. This could be the strength of Western Kentucky is going to be passing the ball around with Maverick MacGyver. We got the new OC who comes in from Abilene, got an influx of receivers. And Sam Houston, their guy drawing it up, Skylar Cassidy, is gone. They don't return a single starter on defense from last year. Defense is going to be garbage. But I could also see Sam Houston being able to, with their tempo, wear out Western Kentucky's defense, which is already bad against the run, and match score for a while. Or I could see Sam Houston running blazing fast tempo, going 3 and out a ton. Their special teams is being rebuilt, so field position could be really in Western Kentucky's favor, and Western Kentucky just pours it on early. Either way, I went over the total. I bet it when there was some varying opinion in the market about 3 weeks ago where I don't know if it was a service play that released it or what, but total was at like 59.5 or 60, dropped down below a key number. So at 58.5, I jumped in. I took over 58.5. I'd still go over. As long as you get a number under 63.5, I'd go over. I think Western Kentucky could put up a ton of points here, 45, 48, 51. None of that would surprise me with Western Kentucky. We saw this happen with this program under Tyson Helton a couple years ago when they brought in Bailey Zappi, and they brought in the OC from Houston Baptist, and they brought in the receivers, and the books just didn't adjust. I don't think the total's adjusted enough because of the personnel that Western Kentucky has brought in and complete DNA change for Sam Houston offensively and defensively will look nothing like the team we saw their first couple of years at FBS. So truly, I could see this being 51-31, just a crazy scoring game. I really could.
You mentioned Cassidy. I don't know if you mentioned like that good Sam Houston defense basically is all playing from North Texas too.
Yeah, 7 starters went to North Texas.
Yeah, it's a complete rebuild there too. Yeah. Western might get there by themselves for the over.
I would assume they put up a big number in this game. And shouldn't have any wind, shouldn't have any weather. All systems go on the high side.
Cool. All right. That is it.
Oh, one other thing, too. Let's talk. We'll sneak in Island Time since we're on Island Time. We'll go to the island real quick.
Yes.
I took Stanford's team total under 26.5. I think that Hawaii is going to be able to really make it difficult for them defensively. Hawaii returns 9 starters. They're sneaky good on defense, too. They get a couple pieces back in the secondary to build upon with their returning starters, guys that were hurt last year. The defensive front 7 is actually very serviceable. They do pretty well against the run. They can create a little bit of pressure. I think Stanford really wants to truncate this game down and play very slow, and I think they're very under-talented compared to what they're leading on to offensively. The skill guys that really stretch the field, Io Manor and Mosley, are gone. They bring in Gulbranson at quarterback, who's not really a deep shot guy. They're going to run the ball. I think Frank Reich will have his fingerprint on offense to the point where they run this like an NFL game, so conservative in nature. 4th and 1, you're going to punt, play field position. You get in the red zone, you're going to kick field goals and take the points. Just a lot of that nonsense. I think everyone loves the Hawaii quarterback Alejado, and I think he'll end up being very good. Last year, I think they let it rip because their season was over. Shager was hurt. It's the last game of the year. Let's just let this kid let it rip. Maybe Hawaii manages this a little differently because this is absolutely must win. They have to get to a bowl game this year, and we've got to manage this game to where it's not just the Timmy Chang fun ball. Let's throw it around and see what happens. We got to run, and they want to run.
They don't manage things though. It is fun ball.
They want to run the ball. They tried last year and it didn't work well, but I think with the defensive line losses for Stanford, Hawaii was at their best last year, and they were winning football games when they ran the ball. So I really do think, we think of the air raid, we think of throwing it around, going really fast, but they don't do that anymore. They were only 50th in FBS in tempo, and they actually ran the ball more than you might think. So I think we'll see Hawaii try to run the ball a little bit. I'm not saying run heavy like Army, but we might see them run the ball 38% of the time instead of 22%. We'll see more run. We'll see them really try to execute their offense because for 3 years now, this run and shoot Hawaii offense has been garbage. So it's got to improve, and I think when you can run the ball a little bit, then that'll open up the pass game. And we're going to have wind, 18 to 22 mile an hour wind with 26 mile an hour gusts. So going to have some wind down there. I went low on Stanford's side.
I could see that. What about, no, you're not playing a side there?
Just Stanford team total under.
Do you have an opinion? Not bettably so? I like Hawaii, and here's the thing. I agree with everything you said, and maybe I'm the Alejado sucker here. he was great against horrible defenses, and guess what? This is a horrible defense. It might I might just be really oversimplifying it. I think this might be a spot where they might manage it differently than I think you think. But Stanford's so bad, and Hawaii, as you pointed out to me last year, home Hawaii is not road Hawaii, and this is home Hawaii. I like their defense too. Weirdly, that Dennis Sermon fixed it because he was not really good at USC as a DB coach, but their defense is sneaky good too. I like them. If I'm going to play anything, it'd probably be Hawaii.
I really want to. 0-5 the last 5 years in home openers, and there's no worse home favorite in America than Hawaii. They're so bad as a home favorite, and you look at last year, didn't cover against Delaware State. In 2023, they hosted Stanford, and this was a line that steamed from plus 12.5 all the way to plus 2. They lose by 13. They don't cover any numbers. 2022, they were like plus 17 against Vanderbilt. It steams down to plus 9. They lose 63-10. They are a poor home favorite year in and year out, and it's been this way forever. And I want to love Hawaii. I want to think they finally get it turned around, but I just need to see it before I do. Gun to my head right now, I bet on Hawaii.
You need to buy into the Island Time franchise, dude. Come on. Be a team player here.
Possible compromise. Tease Stanford plus 6. Put Stanford as teaser.
I'm not doing anything with Frank Reich. You can have all that. If you want that, you and I can talk afterwards. You can probably get a better deal than minus 110 if you're playing with Buck the bookie here.
I don't tease college.
Yeah, but like Stanford plus 8 covers basically any small loss, and then you do one of either Iowa State up to 9 or Western Kentucky down to 4.5. That sounds pretty nice.
Not for me.
Give me a call if you want to do that, pal. I'll give you some great odds.
All right.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much, everybody. Kickoff of Island Time. We will see you in a couple weeks, and until then, thank you so much.